Strap into your seats and get ready. It's time for the Mortarpod.
Hey, it's Alex from SeemsGoodMagic.com. Welcome to this week's episode of the Mortarpod. The Mortarpod is brought to you by SeemsGoodMagic.com. If you have not been there yet, that's where I post all of my draft videos, so stop by, check it out. Putting up plenty of M14 content, so I appreciate all the feedback, criticisms people have been giving on that. And in fact, in this podcast, Jake and I talk about M14 impacting standard. We go over the SCG Open in Minneapolis, their results, and also a little bit of the World Championship results and decks being played and stuff like that. And then we go into Kingdoms of Corithan, which is of course the set that Jake and I designed over the last 3 months. So I'm going to be posting it to my blog. I mentioned it in the podcast too. I'm going to try and get it up there as soon as I'm done editing and all this. So I hope to see some feedback on our cards and yeah, any criticisms or new cards you want to make. It'd be awesome. I'd love to hear that. So email me at mortarpod@seemsgoodmagic.com, and I'll get back to you on that as soon as I can. The Mortarpod's also brought to you by VerenCamp.com, VerenCamp.com. Scott Verenkamp designed SeemsGoodMagic.com. He did a great job, so I like to give him a shout-out at the beginning of every podcast. I thought he did a great job. Check out his portfolio if you need web design work. All right, without further ado, I think we're going to start this week. Shortest intro ever, right? All right, I'll see you guys later. All right, well, SCG Open was just in Minneapolis, so we're going to see if there's any cool decks, because they already have the results from it. And that was yesterday and today. Today's
Legacy?
Yep, Legacy event today. A lot of our buddies went up there. I don't think anybody from our group did too amazing.
Apparently not on
top 8
on Saturday, but
yeah. So no one too good for standard, but we're just going to look at some of the new lists. Does look like there's a lot of Jund, especially in the top 8, but I think it's kind of to be expected now because of scavenging news, and it looks like probably most of them are main decking it, I would guess. Yeah. So that card must be playing pretty well.
Yeah.
As expected.
It's good.
Yep, and it's weird seeing it in core set, but I mean it works. It doesn't feel like it's too
it's
strong
not
in core
overpowered.
set. No.
It's not an overpowered card in general.
No.
Sorry.
So let's look at green-red Domri. This looks kind of fun. So I'm assuming it looks like it's pretty much the same aggro deck, slightly different, I guess, with the Arbor Elves and the Elvish Mystics. But the whole Rampager, Hellrider, Strangleroot Guys, Thundermaw, Hellkite plan was a plan at one time. And sort of like there was also like a Jund haste list for a while. So this must be like a new offshoot of that.
Yeah.
So this is running Domri, and now we've got Scavenging Ooze and Elvish Mystic in addition. And Burning Earth's out of sideboard, so obviously
this might be another reason that they're not running like black anymore.
Yeah,
you know?
Too much, and they can't go into this plan against certain decks. I'm trying to think where this plan works best. It probably works pretty well against the Jund decks, if they can land it. But they have some ramp, so I can see them doing it. No Burning Tree, so they're not even like Omega aggro anymore. It looks like it's more mid-range.
They only have 3 Mizium Mortars too, so they're just planning on you burning your removal or killing creatures in combat.
Yeah. So that's it for additions to this sort of list. But 4 of Domri, I mean, they're really on the Domri plan.
I am kind of surprised that there's no Burning Tree, I guess, but
I guess, I mean, this is not the red-green aggro list, actually. I kind of felt like it was closer to the red-green aggro list, but it's not. It doesn't have the nobles. It's not that list. Burning Trees. For a while, they got to the point where they're just doing like Mog Flunkies and stuff, which is really strange. They were
I still saw somebody drop one of those the other day.
It actually works fine with Burning Tree.
If you have the creatures out, yeah. Even 2 Mog Flunkies together is enough, you know. It's a little
cheaper than Ember Beast, so
it's a little time, but you know, you'll be ready to go probably on turn 3.
Yeah, I'm still not really sold on that card, but they were making it work. So
Mm-hmm.
I have seen times where it can't attack, and then it's pretty embarrassing. But they probably have enough haste, especially with the Hell Riders too, that they can make it work. Okay, let's see is there anything new in Bant Hexproof? Let's check it out. Ooh, main deck Fiendslayer Paladins.
Lifelink. It's really good. And First Strike. So it already comes ready to wear the Rancor.
Ethereal. It already has like the Ethereal Armor and the one of the Unflinching Courage abilities. That's kind of funny. So Fiendslayer Paladin, definitely a new addition. That is cool.
It definitely wears Rancor and Spectral Flight really well, though.
And it can't be the target of black or red spells your opponents control, so they can't be pillar. They can't pillar. They can't Searing Spirit in response to you, putting on your first aura.
It negates 2 of the highest removal colors.
And then it also, what's the black removal it dodges currently? Doomblade.
Really big.
If that's seen to play, Abrupt Decay dodges that. And that one's actually
Dreadbore, dodges both of that.
That really Putrefy.
Hard. Yeah.
Those are pretty relevant.
Any of those multicolor ones even. So War Leader's Helix it dodges against blue, white, red flash, It still gets hit by Azorius Charm, but they also play turn and burn. So if they fuse it, they can't hit it with either side. Or if they're trying to play burn, they can't even burn it. Helix, Pillar of Flame, those are all in blue, white, red flash.
Yeah, that's true. There's just tons of stuff that this dodges.
It's a good card. It's cool that they found a way to let it dodge the removal, but get into combat with those creatures and die to them.
Yeah, without being pro red and black. Yeah. And they had originally designed it at pro red and black, and then they just realized it hosed red way too much. Black at least has some sacrifice creature outs.
Mutilate and effects like that. But yeah, red is totally dead in the water to protection.
Yeah, they can't do anything about that, and they can't steal it.
It's so sad. Yeah. Red really needs a way to be I'm colorless this turn or whatever to get past protection.
And the nice thing in limited is it still dodges red active treason, so they can't be doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
so you can totally feel free to equip or pump with anything.
But they can still attack into it. So I do like that aspect.
Yeah, I like it. I think this is a really well designed.
Gets in combat still with creatures, but can't be burned out.
Yeah, it combats their creatures really well, both having First Strike and Lifelink. So it's actually a really good color hose card, just in the fact that it has First Strike, Lifelink.
And now they have Gladecover Scout, so they don't even. What did they lose? I'm trying to think what they lost here.
Did they used to play Fencing?
Yeah.
Ace?
So Fencing Ace is out. That's probably for the Fiendslayer maybe. But what did they put in the Gladecover for? Because they're still doing the Pilgrims, definitely. I wonder if they dropped some auras, but this looks like the same aura package. Ethereal Armor, Rancor, Spectral Flight, Unflinching Courage.
I can't imagine they took out auras.
Yeah. Because that distribution's probably... Maybe a couple Simic Charms?
No, they took out Voice of Resurgence main deck.
Oh, I see. You're right. Wow. This one is not running Voice of Resurgence. So...
It's in the sideboard as a 4-of.
It does have 11 hexproof dudes, though.
Yeah.
Gladecover does look like it goes into this deck really nicely.
Fiendslayer Paladin is kind of hexproof, too.
Fiendslayer can be a way good aura target.
Yeah.
Like you said, with the lifelink, you can just be like, Ethereal Armor, Rancor, swing, gain 1,000,000 life. So this deck is just always good.
Yeah, this deck is very annoying.
That strategy is extremely strong.
And what do they even lose? They lose Spectral Flight, Rancor, Avacyn's Pilgrim, which they can, if they wanted to continue this on. Well, they'd lose Invisible Stalker and Geist, which are very key to this deck. So I think this deck does fall off after rotation, but it's really good right now. Oh, they're saying this guy was first place now.
Oh, wow, this guy won with this. Wow, I didn't even realize that. Okay. Johnny, Caller of the Pride, also one of in it. What do you think about that? It didn't always do it.
Double strike.
It didn't always do that though, did it? I mean, that must just end people.
I guess +1/+1 counters for plus is pretty good too.
It's just a one of too. It's not like it's probably just a nice off the top. Oh, okay. Now I can do twice the damage, so that's good.
He's a cool card. I'm glad that he has found a place to belong, because he did not belong anywhere.
And you know what the interesting thing about this deck is? even though I would, it's completely non-basic lands, Burning Earth's not even good against this deck.
Yeah.
Because as soon as they get some life gain online, Burning Earth doesn't matter. It's just,
Well,
you know
and they
what I mean?
stop at 3 mana.
Like, I mean, it kind of matters, but it doesn't matter enough where I would bring it in this
Yeah.
match. So this
Well,
deck is an example of a deck that's like all non-basics, but it's still way too
Yeah.
hard to play Burning Earth against them.
They'll maybe lose 3 life a turn, but their turn progression
It's
stops
so
at
fast.
3 mana.
Yeah, and they're ready by turn 3.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So on turn 3, when you play your Burning Earth, they're already like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you got to think of this as a combo deck that's trying to combo you out by turn 4 or 5 at the latest, and it's already got the combo set up. It just takes a couple turns to hit it.
Mending Touch out of sideboard, that's pretty fascinating. I haven't seen that before.
It dodges Supreme Verdict, which I think is the only thing that it can do.
It's cool.
Yeah.
It's funny, because Mending Touch is pretty much an example of an unplayable, or not unplayable, but we never ended up playing it in...
when you think about the only way that you can kill your creatures
Limited.
is to Supreme Verdict them away, and if you have a bunch of auras on them, that's a huge investment to lose, So it actually makes sense as a way to dodge Supreme Verdict.
And Voice, too. So I'm sure he brings that in for those matches. And he probably, swaps it for the Fiendslayer. I could see Fiendslayer being a lot worse in the control.
I would think that's where it goes for sure.
Yeah.
It's just that Fiendslayer against Jund, against red-green aggro even,
is really good.
Is really good.
Even against me, like a Naya Blitz deck or something. Because there's a lot of 2/2 or 2 toughness guys.
You can still play black-red in standard right now, too. Fiendslayer Paladin is a lot better against the meta than Voice of Resurgence is.
I'm impressed that this guy very, very correctly utilized it. I don't know if he these days everybody's sort of getting inspiration from each other's deck lists, so I'm not going to say that he necessarily came up with this plan, but if someone, I don't actually know the article or whatever, someone may have written that Fiendslayer Paladin is pretty playable and constructed, but this guy obviously made some good use of it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
So do you think that post-rotation we'll go back to 2-color decks instead? Do you think that's what they're trying to do by not printing lands again?
I'm not sure.
M14
So we're going to be losing Innistrad lands, so I guess it's going to be a little bit harder to do 3-color decks. We're also losing Cavern of Souls, so we can't have like uncounterable creatures, creatures anymore that easily. And are we losing any counter spells that are
Dissipate's out.
Oh, but Syncopate, that's true. Dissipate was played for the hard control decks, but we still have Syncopate. Spell Blast,
I think Essence Scatter is tremendously good after a rotation.
Essence Scatter's back, that's true. They didn't have anything like that, huh?
We had it, it just never mattered because Cavern of Souls is in standard.
It was in M13 too?
I think it was. Maybe it wasn't.
I don't think it was.
Maybe it wasn't.
We can check.
I feel like we've had access to Essence Scatter, but it's so useless that maybe it was in M12, and then once Innistrad came in...
No, it wasn't. So it was M14, M13, Duels of Planeswalkers, M10. M10 is when they changed it from Remove Soul to Essence Scatter. Because Remove Soul, I think, just didn't sound blue. It sounded black.
Those are the only core sets they've done it in? They didn't do it in 12 or 11?
Guess not.
God.
That was when they had Mana Leak. So it was like...
Oh, never mind.
Because then it would have been at 2-drop anyway. Right. So, I definitely don't miss Mana Leak.
Yeah. God. Yeah, good riddance to that card. That card should just be an uncommon when they bring it back.
It was, yeah. It was just too obnoxious. It constructed. It was a big
Syncopate is 2 mana.
And it exiles too.
Yeah.
Which is really relevant. I thought.
But still, 2 extra mana for 2 mana means that you don't get to play anything for sure against a blue deck on turns 1 through 4, basically. You're not guaranteed to get any of your spells.
Because Syncopate keeps them at bay.
I was talking about Mana Leak. There's just no way that you're getting anything off for sure.
Oh, because it's
like
so much more mana.
Yeah, Syncopate, you can see where they're at and stuff, and at least they have to scale it according to how much you've left open.
Mm-hmm.
Mana Leak is so brutal because even
It's
if
so
they
efficient.
only
They
left
can, like,
one open,
yeah. That's really good. That's a good point. Counterspells have always been like a really tricky thing for them to get down. I mean, you've got to admit, a lot of players complain about counterspells.
Well,
There were, or at times, maybe not recently, but at times counterspells really feel like it's more like you're denying the person playing the game rather than denying them of a spell. For some people, it just feels like that.
And it feels really good to beat people who are countering every spell you play too.
Yeah, it does. That's a good point. But they've had, like, it waxes and wanes when counterspells aren't good. They can't really come up with a good plan for it.
I hope that they've accepted that Mana Leak might be too good for a common, you know. And I think Rune Snag was
obnoxious.
Very
like,
obnoxious.
Remand. Do you remember how insane Remand was? It was just 2 mana, return the spell to your hand, and I get to net a card.
Return.
It's a cantrip.
Yeah.
Cantrip counterspells you have to be so careful with. Like, Dream Fracture felt pretty good because at least they got to draw 2, so you both were kind of netting something.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, Dream Fracture I thought was okay. It's the same with Vex, where they draw the card but you counter their spell. You know.
How did that one work?
It's just counter that spell and you draw a card.
I see.
I mean, that spell's control. I shouldn't say you, but you, the player who controlled the spell, draws that card.
Yeah.
But Vex was...
What are some other ones I'm trying to think recently that were... like, ones during Cawblade were the Spell Pierce, which is... I mean, that's Legacy, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're talking Legacy Counterspell here. And that's just... I mean, it's amazing. That it's just a one drop one that counters it unless they pay 2 more.
Thankfully, it's not a creature.
This was, I mean, it's very actually narrow, but it totally was a hugely played card.
Yeah.
And still is. And it was the importance of it in Standard at that time was for Mind Sculptor. Mm-hmm. Not only were you playing 4 little Jaces, but you probably had 4 Spell Pierce main deck because you got in Spell Pierce battles with people eventually to play your Jace. So that was at a time when mirror matches and counter spells were, it was a crazy time.
Yeah, Jace the Mind Sculptor
it was controller heaven.
Yeah.
But it was definitely aggro and mid-range.
I definitely liked playing with Jace when he was out, but then after a while it was just like, this card's dumb, you know?
We've also seen Dispel, which is a good just counterspell.
I like this card a lot.
Counterspell.
I actually have 2 of them in my sideboard for my standard deck too.
First appearing in World Wake.
I have 3 foil World Wake versions.
But yeah, still seeing some constructed, probably sideboard play in some decks.
It's still legit against Force of Will if you're in Legacy, I guess, if you wanted to.
Counter your counter spell. Can't ask for better than that.
Yeah. And that's what it is good for in sideboards.
And you said Rune Snag. Oh, here's another one, Rewind. And this is actually in
Standard rotating
in Standard right now. Yep, rotating out. But what do you think? I mean, we kind of talk about Rewind and how good it is. Yeah.
It's much at the time that they printed it originally,
was it better?
It was a common. And I think they printed it at common because Counterspell was still at common for 2 mana, you know. And
well, that was part of a weird cycle of stuff that ultimately made a deck that was really obnoxious too.
That in the end was just proven that you shouldn't you can't do both. You can't give lands that produce multiple mana for tapping and give them things that untap when they are played. So
yeah, what were they thinking?
Yeah, it was just like,
what were they thinking?
I think it was at this time Mark Rosewater was like almost exclusively involved with the design of it or something like that. You know, like he had so much control over it and they didn't have a lot of people there to question it. So it was basically like the first set that I did, or that full first block that I did, you know. Like there's not a ton of input from other people, so what I think might not be very powerful or like might not be too powerful actually proves to be very powerful, you know. So it's that thing.
Yeah.
Where nobody's there to say, well,
yeah, I mean, it's an unfortunate aspect.
Yeah. Like, Palancron really should have been, like, untapped 4 lands when it comes in.
Yeah.
They should have all just untapped half of what you paid to get them, basically.
They thought that because you're paying 7 mana, it'd be harder to make work. But
Yeah, the problem is that you also had sneak attack in at that time too.
jeez,
So you could literally just drop your Palinchron for 1 and tap all 6 of your other land, pay the 4 to bounce it back, untap all your 7 of your lands, and then still be netting mana just with 7 mana out, not even having a double tap.
yeah, I mean, really strong, really stupid,
Yeah,
and it's played in some Commander too. But those people are
mean.
sick and obnoxious.
I don't even play it in Commander anymore.
But Rewind, very good. We still see it occasionally too. I'm pretty sure the blue, white, red flash deck probably does something at least on a sideboard maybe with it. Yeah, maybe a one of.
No.
Maybe not. But I feel like I've seen it in some lists, and actually I've seen it in some America lists too. I think we saw someone at the last when we were watching some SCG Open stuff, and someone was playing it in a deck pretty similar to this.
And they just didn't even tap mana for it. They just showed it.
Yeah, they did. They
Yeah.
just showed it. And that was fine.
Yeah, it was fine.
So it's like, oh yeah, free counterspell.
Yeah. So stupid.
These blue, white, red flash decks, I've said it before, these decks are really good. Oh yeah, Snapcaster's rotating out. Looks like Control is actually taking a pretty big hit here, huh?
I mean, Snapcaster's very good, but it shouldn't be the end-all be-all to Control. You know, you're losing Augur and Restoration Angel, but there's still Supreme Verdict, there's still Sphinx's Revelation,
Yeah.
and there are still counterspells, you know.
Okay.
There's Essence Scatter is still around, which
Is
is
Spellblast-
really good.
Is Spellblast at least sideboardable, or is it completely unplayable? Because against like the 1 and 2 drop decks, I could see it being pretty good. It's a 2 mana. I guess it still would be
still
like a cancel.
after.
Yeah.
It's still after the fact usually.
Yeah, I
you
think
know?
you're right. I think Spellblast is just
I think
too
it's
expensive. You'd
yeah.
rather just run a cancel in or
It's
something.
a cool counterspell. It's just
I haven't even played it
yeah,
in limited.
if you're
It
ever-
looks too expensive. It always looks too
yeah.
expensive.
If you're ever, it's probably best in a 3-color deck as a one-of. You know, as a catch-all where you don't necessarily need to have the double blue to get it off.
So post rotation, at least that we know of, what are the counterspells we're looking at? From return, we got Syncopate, Cancel,
Fall of the Gavel,
Essence Scatter,
Dispel,
Negate,
Spell Blast,
Spell Blast.
Counterflux.
Oh yeah, that's one too. Render Silent.
Yep, that's actually an okay one in my opinion.
If you're going to be doing Sphinx's Revelation, which I'm assuming you
Yeah.
are, so
If you're going
it's an option.
to be countering spells anyway, you
It's
might
an
as well
option.
play that one.
Yeah.
There's got to be Pilfered Plant or Psychic Strike,
Psychic Strike.
which is I think probably a really good one.
Psychic Strike feels like a cool one for self-mill, but you have to make them do it, don't you?
It's that
Player.
controller of
Okay.
that spell counters it, but I
It'd be
still
cooler
feel
if they
like
let
it's
you
fine.
pick.
Yeah, yeah.
I would have liked it as sort of like a self-mill sort of thing too, but I guess it flavorfully makes more sense as a counter and mill you,
yeah.
because it was from a set with it was a Dimir card, so they were all about that
Yeah.
grinding.
And then I guess there's also Spell Rupture. So if you have big
Wait,
creatures,
I can't think of that one right now.
that's the Simic one or whatever. The one that feels really Simic-y.
Oh yeah, counter target spell unless the controller pays for the highest amount power creatures you control. Yeah, that was a good one. Then there's also the green blue one, the other Simic one, the
Yeah,
rare.
Plasm Capture and Mana or Mystic Genesis.
Plasm captures. Yeah, I was actually thinking of Mystic Genesis, but this one too. The one from Dragon's Maze, 2 green, 2 blue, counter it, and at the beginning of your next pre-combat main phase, you can add mana. So it's basically a mana short, right?
Yeah, it is. It's mana drain. is
Mana,
what it's called, yeah.
mana drain.
But it's colored. Mana
Well,
that
way
you
more
get.
way more color intensive, and way more expensive.
But you
so-
get colored mana back too from it.
True. It's significantly worse.
Yeah.
But this card's obnoxious.
Yeah, but
Oh
that
my
card's stupid.
God. Well, now I mean you have to take this.
Printed at uncommon when it first came out. Too.
But this was at a time when there was mana burn, so it actually like
Okay, yeah, you're right.
it made sense because at the time it was thought of as something that was dealing damage to you.
Yeah.
So then it was
actually
why.
like you had to spend this mana or you were gonna get screwed by mana burn. So
Now it's just straight up ridiculous.
Mhm.
It's just like counterspell plus additional ramp for you your next turn.
could they print a counterspell for blue black that you countered their spell and then this card deals damage to you equal to that spell's converted mana cost?
That'd be kind of cool.
Because then it's like mana drain, you know.
What mana drain was pretty much intended to be. We'll have to look into that for the next.
Yeah, actually,
set we're
maybe
working
as a
on.
blue-red one to feel more like Psionic Blast or Char, you know?
You mean just a blue and a red?
Yeah,
I think you could probably do that.
I think that would be justified.
That'd be kind of cool. We'll have to look into that. I like it. It's enemy color, so it makes
Mhm.
more sense than the blue-black
Yeah,
for at least what we're trying to do.
blue-black makes sense for Magic
Because
normal.
it
but
could also
for
be
what we're
lose.
trying to do.
Blue-black would
lose
be
life.
like lose life, then
Mhm.
it would feel a little more black maybe. So mana drain, ridiculous, but where are the counterspells here? Dissipate, syncopate. Oh yeah, turn and burns and standard, that's right. Zori's
that
Charm doesn't. but-
Counterspells are also just out of favor because the threats are so cheap, too.
Yeah, that's true. I think dissipate and the syncopate just are mostly for the Jund matchup.
Mhm.
These counterspells tend to really shine in the Jund matchup, and then just really weak against the super aggro decks.
Yeah.
Like I bet these are very tough to play against the Bant Hexproof
Or the Elf deck.
deck, and I think actually Bant Hexproof probably fares remarkably well against this deck. Azori's Charm is completely turned off, which is such an important aspect of this deck. They have to They have to get one of their main deck 2 Supreme Verdicts in time. They don't get much time to do it, so they have to get lucky and
Mhm.
be able to get to that. Sphinx's Revelation becomes so much weaker in the Bant Hexproof match because you just don't get time to get
Yeah,
to the
you have
late
to
game.
like use it very early.
So if you're seeing it early, you're in big trouble.
Yeah.
Like if you have an opener with it, you're not happy.
And like you said, turn and burn is useless.
All your spot removal.
yeah.
Azorius Charm is like the single most important piece of spot removal for this deck. This is like how this deck can fare so well in the Omega aggro matches because Azorius Charm is such a setback, and this can just set a tempo that eventually just wins through card advantage and timely spot removal. It's really tough to play against this deck if they have
Yeah.
a good draw. If they're like turn 2 Augur, they can block your 2 power guys, then they're like at a point where they can start Azorius Charming, Snapcaster getting double abilities, getting card advantage through Think Twices, gaining board presence and card advantage through Restoration Angel. A lot of good. Restoration Angel is still insane, and that's actually rotating out too.
Yeah.
So that should be something to know. It looks like
the
this.
whole creature base is going.
It looks like the blue-white-red flash deck is just done. It's
I
gonna
think
shift
if
into
it's
something
gonna
else.
change to something, it might be like Tempo, where they have Liev Sky Knight Legionnaire, like everything in the
If that
air.
works,
Yeah,
if that would
but-
work, I don't think that's even.
But
you
why
know,
not?
no, I mean it's feasible. I'm
Oh,
saying
okay.
it's not the same plan.
No,
as this.
it's
you know?
very different. You're
So-
not playing
so the
control
players-
really at all.
The players that really like this deck, I think,
That's not going to be the deck for them.
play it till October because that's all you got.
Yeah.
This is gonna be gone. So this deck's losing quite a bit. No more Think Twice either. It's another thing to note. We're gonna be losing that. Think Twice was still, I guess, pretty much restricted to that mid-range
Mhm.
flash deck
But
being the
Think
main
Twice
one that
was
ran it.
always fun.
Yeah, it was good.
I like
Definitely
that
good.
card.
So we looked at, let's look at Green White Elves. We looked at this a little bit earlier. This is a cool looking deck. It's got the new Garrick in it, 4 of, as a matter of fact, which is pretty baller right
Mhm.
there. It's also got 4 Craterhoof Behemoths, so
I guess 4 Garrick does seem a little
excessive.
huge, but I guess because of the new Planeswalker rule, you can bust 2 Garrick abilities in 1 turn.
That's true. You play your Garrick, you put out a green creature.
Next turn, you can play the plus ability on that same Garrick, get your guys, and then play another Garrick and drop
and
a
then-
new creature.
That's true. That does work pretty well together. It's also got just like all the 1-drop ramp creatures. Got Arbor Elf, Avacyn's Pilgrim, Elvish Archdruid for the, this isn't an
Massive
M14, so actually this is going to be out in October too.
I'm
But for
glad
now,
they're getting rid of it.
there's actually just tons of elves because you got Arbor, you have the Mystic, and you have Visionary. Maybe that's it for elves he's running. I guess the Archdruid too, as itself. So it's only what, 4, 8, 12, 16? That's a lot less than I realized.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess he really only needs quantity of them with the Archdruid. And if you have a couple out, then
Then he still taps for 2.
yeah, he's still Findhorn Elder then
Yeah.
at that point.
That
pumps
buffs
your
your
team.
other guys, yeah.
Yeah, he's actually pretty important for this deck. But I like it's doing 4 of Wolf for Silverheart, so that's good enough. And Colonian Hydra from M14. So this card's good enough to play. I've heard a really good argument about it is that it's essentially just a 2-turn clock on its own. You know, it's like it's 8-8, then it's what 16-16, and then it's just over, and it's trample. So it I think this one maybe just went under the radar for me. I just didn't. The light bulbs didn't go off on it.
The problem is that they keep giving us like mythics, shit mythics, you know, and so when you see one that just looks like a big creature, it just doesn't look as impressive.
True, but this one I think
this one is actually legit,
and it's a 4. If he just powers it out on turn 3,
yeah,
that's actually really sick.
This
Turn
guy
3
with
play
the
this.
Lightning Mauler would be really
turn
crazy.
4, turn 5. This guy with a Nearheath Pilgrim out of sideboard or something. Gain 8. Gain 16. So it's like totally.
I was just thinking, getting him to attack the turn you play him as an 8/8 trample.
Looks like he does the Tree of Redemption plan. He's got white in here for the Smiter. So that's what's so surprising to me.
Yeah.
Because it's
but
just
he's also
Smiter.
doing it at Gavany Township, too.
Gavany makes sense. So that's a 4 of. Okay. But he's not doing. What was it that I said earlier? You should. Oh, the new Archangel of Thune, I thought maybe. But double white, I guess. Too tough. And the fact that he's got 4 Gavany is actually quite a few, 4 of non-colored land can be.
Especially when you've got like a bunch of 1-drop green creatures.
That can suck. But this deck looks fun. It looks like it's pretty fun to play. Glad to see Elvish Mystic already coming in some decks. I think a lot of people missed Lano or Elves style
Just waiting
elf.
for that to come back.
Yeah. See if there's anything else.
I think just for consistency's sake, they wanted Elvish Mystic, you know.
So a lot of green-red aggro. Let's just quickly look at. We're going to talk about Kingdoms, our set again today, and we're going to try and do some more spoilers. I think I'm just going to I'm going to try and figure out after this podcast. I'm going to try and get all of the card images up in my blog so you guys can take a look at them, and you can start critiquing some of them. And I think we're pretty satisfied with where they're at now. We're still willing to make some changes if we have to.
And we're definitely like looking for if you see any mistakes as far as spelling or
and stuff like that,
editorial mistakes. We definitely want to see those. So if you're looking through it and that's something that you want to do, definitely look through it with a fine-tooth comb or whatever and pick out those mistakes and let us know about them.
And I hope that this sort of sets a template for what we're looking for this block. So we'd really love some submissions from you guys.
Yeah, actually that would really help too.
If you have some, you should just
if
email
you have
me.
Ideas, even like just general ideas of where to go with an ability.
Put it in the blog. You can comment in the blog, or you can just email me at mortarpod@SeemsGoodMagic.com with some card ideas, and we'd be happy to look them over.
Yeah, we definitely want to develop this into something.
So we worked on this one at maybe like 2 or 3 months or something like that.
I think it was probably 3 months.
Okay, and I'm pretty happy with where they turned out. We haven't done a ton of playtesting, I admit, but
we've done. I feel like we've done a few hours, and it was like good playtesting with the commons, and now we need to kind of nail down the uncommons and rares. So I think that we are gonna approach it with a different playtest style in mind this next time, or that's my plan. Is that we're just probably gonna sit down and reveal all the cards, pick out the commons we want to put into our deck, and then also make like a few uncommons and rares and
just see how they play.
Yeah, and just to give us an idea and be realistic about the limited format. So we'll only do like one of each rare in our deck at a time, so that we don't, because it's really unlikely to get more than one of the same rare.
Huh. That's weird.
That is weird.
was going to look at the Knoxville lists, but do they not have them posted yet? Was
Are
that
they
just...
from today?
Oh, now it's working. Okay. So they have 3 different decks available here. Ooh, Kibler, Reed Duke. Some pretty big names here.
I saw this. A few of these.
This is in Amsterdam.
Games. Yeah.
So this is the World Championship event. Let's look at Kibler's, of course, green, red aggro, his classic colors. Arbor Elf, Elvish Mystic, Flint of Boar, Rampager, Hellrider, Scavenging Ooze, Strangleroot, Thundermaw, Domri.
I like
Mortars.
Rampager so much.
Yeah, Rampager is a phenomenal card. Very phenomenal card. Quickly became one of my favorite Naya Blitz, and it's not even a human. I finally see how valuable it is. There's just so many powerful cards that it's good against, like Boros Reckoner being, not the least of which, because that guy is able to block so effectively, and this straight up makes it so it's like, I'm going over top of him, so you didn't get to do that, and if you want to kill my creature now, you have to target it with the Reckoner, so it does like everything you want against that card.
I will say that it
goes over top of Resto blocks. They're like surprise block Resto. It's like, well, thank God I can trample over top of that, no problem.
Yeah, and actually, just my guy is actually unblocked because
it's like
I've got the 4 damage here to take out your Resto.
Yep, it's basically 2 mana removal for Resto in green red.
As long as that's the use they're going to do with their Resto.
This is by far, I think, the best Blood Rush creature.
It's also kind of doubles as a Boros Charm to the face, that extra 4 damage.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of uses for the Gore Clan Rampager.
But this looks like Kibler style in true Kibler fashion. Just
beat face.
A lot of efficiency. I'm sure he's loving having Scavenging Ooze now.
That card is so good. A Scavenging Ooze and Aetherling single-handedly brought me back from what would have been certain death against double Boros Reckoner.
Jeez.
Yeah. So I was
just
able to swing in with my Aetherling, blink it out, block with it, blink it out again so it didn't deal damage, and then my Scavenging Ooze was too big for him to deal damage to kill it, or
so
something. Or he could kill it, but he would then not be able to deal the damage to me or something like that. It was really good. Scavenging Ooze is very good in Standard right now.
But pretty cool looking list. Let's see this Shehar Shinhar American Flash. What do we got? Ratchet Bomb on the side. There's a new addition. Is it Charm main deck? I think that was a little bit different than the last list.
It's only one of.
Yeah.
One less Azorius Charm, so he's playing it probably more often as a shock. And then late game. I mean, filtering when you play Snapcaster is fine. I've always felt like that. Those two together are fine.
I liked Is It Charm. I think the reason that it didn't see much play is it's a weird color mashup for the current Standard. The only deck that's really playing blue and red is this mid-range Flash deck, right? I don't know. Most decks aren't doing blue-red.
Like Grixis Control isn't that great.
No, it's pretty much non-existent.
Yeah,
that one's non-existent.
I don't even think you can do it really because Mutilate's your real mass removal. Bonfire, I guess you can use. But Grixis Control is just really hard, even just straight up blue-red. Is It Charm is really good in a color combination that doesn't have a lot of depth to it, I guess.
Right now.
Yeah.
In Standard. But, this looks like pretty stock other than that. And let's look at Reed Dukes, John Midrange. Huntmaster, Scavenging Ooze, Thragtusk, Olivia, Garrick, Keyrune, Abrupt Decay. Looks like a lot of one-ofs. We've seen this philosophy in Jund before too, though. It seems like what Jund wanted to do, and they've always sort of said this, main deck it's pretty much like versatile. It just goes over. It's not good in any particular matchup, but okay in every matchup.
Yeah.
And then post sideboard is where it's really going to shine, because it's like, okay, now I need to just adopt into this strategy.
3 Liliana out of the board is crazy.
So Jund is a very popular archetype because it's consistent in being okay against everything. So it feels you never really feel like you're straight up out of the match. I think that's why it's so popular, so played right now, and the mana base is so supportive of it. And like you said, they may be shifting into maybe a 2-color thing coming with Theros. Since we're going to be losing Innistrad lands,
well, they've even said that Theros is going to be mostly monocolor.
So then you're not looking at, shouldn't be hoping to get much fixing. We haven't seen Birds of Paradise in a little while now, right?
I'm actually kind of thinking Birds of Paradise is a totally possible reprint for Theros. It would be strange because...
It's a monocolor set.
No, I think it would be strange because Return to Ravnica was the last time that they printed Birds of Paradise outside of a core set, and it would have made more sense in
just
Ravnica.
Ravnica.
To print it in that, and then to print it in this block after doesn't make a lot of sense.
Does it feel like a Grecian card?
You could, I think you could do it.
Argue it.
Just a 1/1 green that taps for any color, you know, instead of the 0/1 flying green that taps for any color.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you have Manaweb Sliver now,
Yeah.
but he can't. He's just too expensive. It's like Utopia Tree, sort of the same.
Yeah. And Utopia Tree at least could block 1/1s, but
yeah. All right, well, I guess that's all the lists I have for that. We can start talking about Kingdoms now. We're going to do a little bit of a reminder on how Kingdoms works exactly, too, because it's sort of an enemy color set. So there's a few different kingdoms that are color mashups, and it's all the enemy colors. So you have, like, white. This is always tough for me to do. It's white, black, green.
yes,
And you have white, red,
black, blue, red, green,
blue, red, green.
red, blue, white, and green, black, blue.
So you don't need to remember all those, but those are all the different.
Yeah.
Those are all the different possible enemy color combinations. So the last time that we saw something similar to that would have been like Apocalypse. Right?
They did it in Alara Reborn. You know, like once Alara Reborn came back together, they pushed that enemy color thing too, because then suddenly
They had hybrids too
Yeah.
at that time, so it felt a little bit. I don't know.
they had
maybe
enemy
easier.
color hybrid there too,
Yeah.
and actually they did enemy color in Eventide too as hybrid, but not necessarily gold, which is
And this doesn't have hybrid.
yeah.
We originally had a couple cards that had some hybrid,
but we went through and took them all out.
Yep. And hybrid is actually evergreen.
It is. It's
but
just
it feels like they don't just toss it in willy-nilly.
they don't just put it in on 1 or 2 or 3 cards.
They sort of make it a theme when
Yeah.
they do put it in, even though it's evergreen. So hybrid's kind of in a weird place in that. Maybe eventually they'll move into it being more
I think
streamlined
it's only
and
been
okay.
in Ravnica, Shadowmoor Block, and then Alara, and then Return to Ravnica. So they already did the hybrid theme set or theme block, you know,
Mhm.
and then they put it back into the gold sets. So I think they're probably going to limit it to used in gold sets, you know, sets that have a lot of multicolor or that are strictly hybrid theme, you know. They could also do it in monocolor sets, so maybe even in Theros they have some hybrid cards because it works well in monocolor.
Before we get into the cards, why don't we just quickly talk about the new mechanics that we have for the set. So we've got Detonate, and Detonate is the white, black, red ability.
Like
So-
Ward Breaker.
So I'll show you, this is an example of a Detonate creature. Wordbreaker, it's a 3-mana 2/2 with Detonate and Enchantment. And when you sacrifice Wordbreaker, you gain 4 life. So the wording on Detonate is, whenever an enchantment, in this case, enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, you may sacrifice this creature. If you do, destroy that permanent. So really what it is, it's kind of like a removal spell attached to a permanent, and then it's a narrow removal spell. So it only can target specific permanent types.
It doesn't target either, so it does get by hexproof. You get a window of opportunity to destroy hexproof permanents. There aren't too many in our set, but it is something to note. You know, there's a little more access to removal then when you have Detonate in your deck.
We weren't sure how powerful it was going to be at first, but we've play tested with it, and it's perfectly fine.
Yeah,
it's
it
acceptable.
actually
It's not overpowered.
it looks like it's gonna be kind of overpowered, but it is not. It is very legit. When you think of cards like Seal of Fire or Seal of Removal, or Seal of Doom, those cards in particular where your opponent knows the next creature that fits the criteria to be hit by them, they are gonna hit it, you know, if it's a good enough one. But they always got the choice. This one is, you get the choice one time only. You know, you can't just sit there and wait a few turns with your blockers out. You have to decide here and now when it comes out.
And we've got it on quite a few spells, so we'll be showing you some more of
Yeah.
those. In blue, we've got Majesty, so I'll show you that because it's a pretty fun
Yeah.
mechanic. And this kind of can be different things, but Majesty is a creature will gain certain abilities based on contingent on you controlling a permanent of converted mana cost 6 or greater. So the abilities are typically pretty powerful.
Mhm.
For example, the one I'm looking at now is a rare, but it's a 9 mana 8/11 Leviathan creature, and its Majesty is when you cast it, if you control a permanent with converted mana cost 6 or greater, you get to tap all permanents your opponents control, and each opponent skips his or her next untap step. This creature also has Island Walk and Trample, but notice that it says when you cast it, so it doesn't.
So
this
you already
this
have
one's not triggering on resolution. Otherwise, it would always trigger its own Majesty. So
you have to already have a 6-drop out in play to even get your
but we can show
Majesty.
you.
But
We'll show you a common one now. So this is another Majesty ability, but you can see that it's versatile and there's all sorts of different types of abilities you can use with Majesty. But this is a 4-drop 2/4 with Majesty +2/+0. So as long as you control permanent for mana cost 6 or greater, this is a 4/4 for 4. So that's Majesty. In black, theirs is Materialize. Is that their main color?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a common one. Materialize is essentially Unearth, but you permanently get to have it again. It also you
put a token copy of it out instead of putting the card itself onto the battlefield. So that's the way around rematerializing every time.
So it's definitely better than Unearth. I don't even think that's arguable.
Yeah.
But it feels like something that everybody kind of wanted Unearth to be.
Yeah.
Unearth kind of fell short of the mark, I think, a little bit.
I think what they wanted Unearth to be was cool. They wanted it to be this blitz over and over, So they needed to push it with more powerful guys, like as far as their actual power goes. They needed higher power guys with low toughness to be your Unearth guys, so you were actually getting in consistent amounts of damage, but they were super easy to kill. So I think that was the mistake they kind of had made with Unearth. None of them were. I mean, Dregscape Zombie's a 2/1 for 2, And what was the Ogre? Viscera Dragger was probably one of the best because that
one was fun too.
Because it was a 3 for 2.
Yeah.
If you unearthed it.
But Materialize in this, we've costed it appropriately. So it's I don't think it's ever going to feel overpowered. It's a very good mechanic. It's I think it's very much one that would see a lot of constructed play in a standard environment. But at the same time, I don't think it's overpowered. We've sort of the costs have been well designed or tried to be well designed.
We've also every ability in this set that we created has at least one card that is kind of the anti that ability,
So we were looking for ways to have outs to it.
Yeah, not necessarily shut it down entirely, but at least give the
good
player
disruption.
A way to around that if they couldn't disrupt it or if they couldn't stop it otherwise.
So the red ability we're going to talk about is called Inspire. And here's an example of it at Uncommon. A 2-mana aura called Inspired Casting. An enchanted creature has Inspire and tap. This creature deals 1 damage to target creature player. So Inspire is whenever its controller casts an instant or sorcery spell, untap enchanted creature. We've seen this before on Gelectrode
is like the best one to
the
know.
prime example. And actually, this is the exact Gelectrode ability mashup that this aura gives. But Inspire was kind of a difficult one to make feel like it could roll against the other mechanics. Inspire is a difficult one because it's so simple. And but
because it
plays,
requires a lot of build around.
Yeah, and we eventually we designed cards to really work well with Inspire. We wanted cheap instants and sorceries that would net you cards and then give you additional value with your creatures. Let's show an example of a creature with Inspire. So what was the name of the Market Huckster? Yeah. So Market Huckster is like Rummaging Goblin, and it has the Inspire ability on it. So it's a 3-mana 1/1 with Inspire, and it has tap, discard a card, draw a card. So it's strictly an upgrade from Rummaging Goblin. But that's okay because Rummaging Goblin is from a core set. But After playing with this in playtesting, it feels pretty good.
Yeah, it's a legit card. It's not too powerful because of the way that
Red
draw
loot,
is,
yeah.
or loot is, yeah. So having it this way worked really well in playtesting. Definitely needed to see more support for it. So I think we added some good stuff at Uncommon, but I can't remember what it was. I know that we had talked about it though while we were playtesting that we needed to put more in, and we definitely did. I just forget which cards specifically we had put in.
I mean, we can go through it later,
Yeah,
but
I'm sure we'll see it.
it's not that red just has Inspire too. As you'll see, there's Majesty in red too, because like we said, there's enemy
It's the
color.
trifecta or
Yeah.
whatever.
There's enemy color mashups in this. So green ability is called Energize. It was formerly Binding, but I think it sounds
I
better
like
than
Energize a lot more.
I think Binding was kind of confusing to
Yeah.
people, maybe, because Binding can also be like binding someone in place.
Yeah,
so
or
it would
Soul
be.
Bond, or
We didn't
like
want-
all those things.
We didn't want the flavor of it to be sort of confused
Mhm.
when you say the word, but Energize does make a lot more sense for what it is. So Energize is very much like Landfall, but in this you get more permanent abilities in the form of counters. So Energize is if a land would enter the battlefield untapped and under your control, you may have it enter the battlefield tapped instead. If you do, put an energy counter on this creature. So flavorfully, I like it more than Landfall. Because Landfall was, you just play a land, and all of a sudden you get a creature that maybe gets bigger,
or you put a new creature out,
or you get quest counters.
Yeah.
They had that sort of mashed up a little bit.
And the idea behind Landfall was that you were exploring new land, and that was why the quest counter thing actually works. And actually, Territorial Bailoff kind of works that way, or
the
whatever.
ones that get bigger.
Yeah, bigger because they're
expanding their territory.
Yeah, they're being aggressive and going into new territory. Some of the ones that don't necessarily work are probably like Mysteries of the Deep, the spells, like Searing Blaze. It's like, why, when you're exploring new land, does this do more,
damage? Yeah, I could see that being a little more difficult to explain.
But
Energize is more difficult to use effectively because you do have to actually have the land enter tapped, which is always significant.
Yeah.
It's not like that's not
and
a big deal.
It's a replacement, so you're not all of your energized creatures get the benefit. So that's why most of the energized creatures are kind of juiced as far as what their payoff is going to be. Like this is a common,
and this is a good one.
Yeah, this is a common gray ogre.
So it's 3 mana. It's in green, 2/2 with Energize, and it gets +1/+1 for each energy counter on it. So. I mean, it's just slowly getting bigger.
So
if you don't have any spells
to
to play.
turn after,
Yeah.
and then Rumbling Bailoff,
Absolutely.
and so on.
So the reason that I like it more than Landfall, you get a more permanent ability out of it, and it just feels flavorfully correct, where it's like you're using that mana to benefit the creature.
Or the creature actually itself is drawing the mana out of
the resource.
You can get the resource.
Yeah. Yep. I like it.
Yeah, I liked it too, and I'm happy with where it's finally landed, I guess.
But I mean, I can see some backlash against these because they seem like,
They seem depowered Landfall. I think what we initially thought. But.
And Inspire, I think some people were just kind of unexcited. Yeah, like unexcited by it. But I think I was still pretty happy with how the mechanics turned out. And this is sort of the direction that we want the full block to go. We're gonna, we're gonna definitely add some more mechanics in the next 2 sets we have in the block. And I don't know if we've even decided yet if we're going to have those be standalone or if we're going to try.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about our block structure. I don't know. I haven't ever done like double large set block. I've only created one block anyway, and it was the traditional style, but it would be kind of cool to do a standalone.
Yeah, and I'm definitely, like you said, we're looking for submissions. We'd love that. That'd be really helpful for the rest of the block. So if you have ideas for those mechanics, cards in those mechanics, those mechanics should be around for the full block.
Yeah.
So
we can always like add more, and most of the time they add one per set in the block too. So if you have more ideas of things, or like I said, places to expand some of the abilities that we've already got, then you can let us know about that for sure.
Definitely. Let's start going through the set a little bit here. So Advance the Army, 2 mana instant. You put 2 1/1 red goblin creature totens onto the battlefield. As you notice, red goblin creatures, so represents that mashup of white and red. Totally being a red creature type.
So white red, their mashup is, I mean, white is the like war kingdom. It's all about going to war, battling different kingdoms. It only wants to control the rest of the world through military oppression. So,
which is also why they have detonate.
yeah,
They're they're just very aggressive, warlike. So Agent of Rigel, 1 mana, 1/1 first strike. Can't be blocked by creatures with power 4 or greater. So it's kind of like a shout out to Amru Kithkin from the past. We've made it cheaper. We've sort of just upgraded it to a more
like
common setting.
Thunderwolves plus Amru Kithkin ability, kind of.
And I don't mind this in white. I don't think it's too strong. It's 2 abilities on a common, which you know, they don't do that too often.
Yeah.
But
The second ability it's more narrow than you think, actually.
It's definitely narrow. Amru Kithkin was overpriced.
Yeah.
And it just represents a different age of Magic.
Yeah.
So I like seeing the ability come back on a playable, because actually, let's just say it, a lot of time, the 1 mana, 1/1 first strike's not good enough, even in limited.
Yeah.
So we wanted 1 mana, 1/1 first strike to be a little more playable in limited. Like even striking Sliver, not even that good in M14 unless you have a pretty good Sliver strategy going.
And especially want the one that busts +2/+0.
Yeah. Even the hybrid one from the original Ravnica, what was it, white or red?
Oh yeah, Boros Recruit.
It wasn't even that great. It was okay.
And it was funny because it's better because you can play it in your dual color deck without any problems, but
it's still like just not exciting enough.
Like not a cool card at all.
So we wanted to just add something to the 1 mana 1/1 first strike, make it a little more playable, and it's still way not.
It's still not like the best card ever, but at least there's a little more depth.
It's not even necessarily playable and limited.
But against like Majesty, it's actually pretty good.
Yeah. Angelic Decree, 2 mana instant, choose one or both, which is also a sort of cycle that we have in this set.
I think this is like a cycle.
Choose one or both is always a cool thing to have on cards, and the classic examples of this would be like Branching Bolt.
Branching Bolt's probably the best one to come to mind because it was always felt like you were either going to do 2 for 1 or just get your removal spell.
There's also a green-red one that does an enchantment or an artifact or both. Hull Breach.
But Hull Breach is actually not choose one or both. It's choose one, and they have the destroy both as one of the modes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Now, I feel like if they did that now,
if they had printed it now, yeah. But because originally it had each mode on it.
I see. So it had 3 modes? Okay. So they just didn't have choose one or both at that time.
Yeah.
So target creature you control gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn, or destroy target enchantment. So this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Can double as like a...
I think when we originally made it, it was just the protection thing, and then realized that there was not enough enchantment destruction in the set, so we tacked on the enchantment destruction because we already had
there's some good enchantments too.
Going on.
Anointed Soldier. This is sort of a shout out to recently in Gatecrash. We've got the what kind of thing was his name? The 3-drop.
Yeah, Armored Transport.
Armored Transport. So this is called Anointed Soldier. It's 2 white, 2/2 human soldier. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to Anointed Soldier by creatures blocking it. So pretty much exactly the same abilities Armored Transport. 1 mana cheaper, 2 white. Took a little bit of balancing. I like where it eventually ended up.
Yeah.
It's a good little attacker. It's certainly not overpowered since it doesn't block that well.
I'm really glad that it doesn't block well at all.
Yeah.
Really.
I think initially we had it where it just didn't take combat damage, but that was too powerful.
And it was a 2/1 at that time, but yeah, it is too strong to have just a permanent blocker.
We talked about this being the warlike color anyway, so it should only be benefiting when it's attacking, I feel like. Archon's Mount, here's a first rare we're going to be looking at here. 1 and 3 white for a 3/4 flyer. It has Detonate a Permanent. It's the only card that has Detonate a Permanent, which is obviously the best Detonate you can have. And when you sacrifice Archon's Mount, you gain 4 life. So all the white Detonate creatures have this when you sacrifice
all but one of them. I don't know why we didn't put it on White of Levain, but White of Levain has first strike, and
I think it's because of its creature type. Yeah. It doesn't feel like one that's going to benefit you. But this is a little mini theme. A mini cycle. When you sacrifice it, you gain 4 life. So you'll see later ones that have that. We haven't gotten a chance to play test this rare yet. I still think it's balanced. It's very color intensive, so it's not like you can just toss it around. I think this would definitely make its way into like a blue-white control deck.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because it's a good win con
like
plus
huge
setup.
Contingency plan with Detonate a Permanent.
And it's still pretty good late if you're worried about a certain permanent that they're gonna play. You'll have access to this. Plus you get to gain some life. And keep in mind it's when you sacrifice
Yeah,
like,
it's
the
not
creature.
destruction or
Yeah,
anything like
so
that.
you don't always get to gain 4 life,
Mhm.
which I like. That sort of worked out. It was a cool little thing to go with
Yeah.
Detonate. Beacon of Sanctuary, 4 mana enchantment. You have hexproof. 2 colorless, target creature gains hexproof until end of turn. So this is sort of like Witchbane Orb,
Yeah.
a little more
Leyline
versatile.
of Sanctity without the
Witchbane
extra
Orb,
clause.
Witchbane Orb always felt very narrow.
Mhm.
It only worked against certain cards in a certain strategy, so not always that good. Like good against Mill because they couldn't hit.
Yeah, God, it's so good against Mill.
Yeah, it stops the Jace plan.
Mhm.
It stops the Nephalia Drown Yard plan.
Mhm.
But Beacon of Sanctuary, being able to grant your creatures hexproof, this is a legitimate rare, I think.
Mhm.
Since getting your creatures hexproof is huge.
Yeah,
It's
and
very
we
good.
don't use hexproof too much in this set either. I think we've got it on only 2 or 3 cards, so I like it at rare more than I like it on uncommons, to be perfectly honest with hexproof.
I mean, the thing is, you don't see hexproof too often in white.
Yeah,
It's mostly a blue and green thing. So
it's only been done in this way with the you have hexproof. They haven't done really the granting hexproof to creatures thing in white, but I'm willing to like push it that direction a little more because of the theme of white.
White, I feel like it's not like out of the question for them to have something like hexproof.
Mm-hmm.
Did White ever see White when it was with blue had access to like Shroud with like Death Duelist and stuff?
Always Shroud, and like even hexproof is on Drogskull Captain, and you can argue that the +1/+1 is the white part and the blue part is the
No, it
hexproof,
is, but that mashup feels appropriate.
That mashup does get hexproof and Shroud and protection.
Because white has protection, so it does make sense. It's just hexproof specifically is not commonly done in mono white.
And
so
I actually, if this was gains protection, it would be too good, I think, because it's also stopping combat from affecting your creatures.
Yeah.
So I like it more as hexproof because all it does is force your opponent to make sure you don't have 2 mana up before they try and do something. Or if they are going to do something, make sure that you don't have enough to do their second one too or whatever.
Binding Silence, the next one. 1 mana aura, enchant non-land permanent. Enchanted permanents activated abilities can't be activated. And then 2 mana, attach Binding Silence to target non-land permanent. So this is a cool card because it actually locks out Planeswalkers, which is nice. And
stops Beacon of Sanctuary.
But specifically, keep in mind it's only stopping activated abilities, so it doesn't lock out creatures in any way, shape, or form. It's specifically for Planeswalkers, and it's nice to have cheap outs to Planeswalkers.
Or it's also, takes out Inspire, not the Inspire triggered ability, but usually those creatures also have a tap ability associated with them. So it was kind of that lock against Inspire as well.
And with the new Planeswalker rules, you wouldn't even get an opportunity to reattach Binding Silence, would you?
You couldn't.
Because you play it, you hold priority, and then you just sacrifice the one that has Binding
once
Silence.
they come out, you have to make that decision right at that point.
They would get a chance? I didn't think
No,
I'm talking about the Planeswalker player could just be like, sacrifice the Planeswalker.
Yeah,
there's no chance, there's no opportunity for you to activate the ability.
Planeswalker rule is a state-based effect.
Yeah.
So as soon as it's there.
You're holding priority on that?
Yeah, you have to do that before anyone gets a chance to put anything else on the
Okay, so the fact that with the new Planeswalker rule, this actually plays better for the Planeswalker player.
Yeah,
I think that's correct. I like that more, because this is only 1 mana.
Yeah.
So Brooding Injustice, this is actually a card we designed, I think, in one of our podcasts, which is kind of cool. Yeah, we thought about the mashup on it. So this is a 2 mana enchantment on an aura. Enchanted creature can't attack. When enchanted creature dies, that creature deals damage equal to its power to its controller. I was really happy with how this card played. So you still get to block with your creature, but you're punished if your creature dies. So it's a good limited card.
Yeah, and it felt like a good mashup of white, red, black, or white cards that feel like they could be white or red and black too. Which is kind of where we had to go with this, is really see how those colors would play if they were being hit with their enemy colors on this plane.
I like this a lot because you got to really see all the overlap. Like through trying to see where the overlap was, we really made a lot of discoveries that were like, wow, that's kind of cool that white and red have classically both done this, and now we can kind of bring it all together. Cry of Command. This card played really well, but I don't think it's OP, but it played really well. It's a 3-mana sorcery. Target creature you control gets +3/+3 until end of turn. Whenever that creature attacks this turn, other attacking creatures you control get +1/+0. So we've seen white sort of get quasi overrun cards. Like, what's the example of the course? Maybe it wasn't course. No, I think it was course. That 2/2 white instant.
Oh, glorious!
It was like creatures.
Glorious Charge or glorious Righteous Charge too.
Righteous Charge is the sorcery one that we just saw in Gatecrash. But what's, you know which one I'm talking about?
There's Inspired Charge, Glorious Charge.
There's
there's
an
a lot
instant one that does
I think it's
+2.
Glorious.
And there's one that does +2/+0, and there's one that does +2/+2.
Fortify is +2/+0.
I was even thinking older than that, but you're right.
Trumpet
Fortify.
Blast is
So
the good one.
I guess what we're trying to say is they do it all the time in white.
Yeah.
It's a bit. So this feels like a white ability.
The one that I was going off directly was Angelic Blessing or whatever. The sorcery that grants +3/+3 and flying to one creature that you control. You know, which is the Elspeth ability also.
Where was that at?
That was originally printed in Exodus, and then they printed it a few more times. But it's also the Elspeth ability. +3/+3 and flying.
Yeah. And this one doesn't even grant flying. So.
Yeah.
Czar's Bodyguard is the next card. 1 and 2 white, 3/1. Can block any number of creatures, and when it blocks, it gets +0/+2 until end of turn for each creature it's blocking. So this, obviously, the inspiration for this was the 5-mana Gatecrash Angel. Why can't I think of her name
Guardian
right now?
of the Gateless.
Guardian of the Gateless, which was an excellent limited card. We wanted to sort of have something similar to this. I like the way this one sort of plays. It's a little more color intensive. It's cheaper though. It feels like a really efficiently costed creature because it is. But I like that it limits their attacking to a certain extent, but it still is gonna. It's at best got 3 defense. Or
it's a 3/3 blocker.
At worst, it's a 3/3 blocker.
Yeah.
At best, it can get huge. So it does sort of control their attacks, but it doesn't attack well itself. So it's obviously a very defensive creature.
It's a very strange defensive creature too because it's a 3/1. You know, so it doesn't survive any removal either. That's pointed at it.
But it locks down armies really well.
Yeah.
If they don't have
And it
an answer
actually,
to it.
I was thinking how well it works with Mendade to use the plus ability and make it
preventing
indestructible.
damage to it.
Yeah.
Or making it indestructible. You're right. But even preventing damage.
Yeah, it's pretty
with
cool
the
too.
whole thing. Yeah, for each blocker.
Well, it doesn't prevent for each blocker, does it? Or is it whenever a source? No, it is whenever a source. So yeah, it does. For each blocker, it prevents one. So yeah,
it would add up.
It's really
fast.
good with Mendade.
Yeah. Demolitions Expert. 2 and a white, 1/4 flash creature. Here's an example, a card from a cycle that has an enemy color ability. Not much in this set, right? Just a little bit.
No, it's mostly monocolor theme, you know, but they are paired with their enemy colors. The plane itself was developed that way, you know. The enemy colors are actually the allies on this plane. So it's different from any other plane.
Did you end up changing the creature type, or do we still have the example of the white zombie?
Yeah, the white zombie, right? Yep,
so,
I didn't change that.
Because we had a little bit of backlash on that. But in this plane, you have creature types in colors that we've never seen before. So you're starting to see white vampires. Like you might have thought, no, we saw that with Soren, but Soren was making black vampires.
Yeah, he made black vampires, but he's a white-black vampire planeswalker.
Yeah.
And he's white because he's guarding his homeland and stuff like this.
But now we straight up see white vampires on this plane. We also see white zombies.
Yeah. And
like Rob Zombie.
Yeah.
Rob Zombie's initial band.
Was White Zombie.
Yeah. So anyway, Demolitions Expert of a cycle of creatures with an enemy color activated ability. This one is 1 red, sacrifice it. It deals 1 damage to each attacking creature without flying. So it has Tremor on it, and it's a 1/4 blocker. I like the 1/4 flashers too. We've seen that with like Village Bell Ringer, and I think there's even more than that. What was the one from Dark Ascension, the 2/2 that removed a creature from combat?
Yeah.
It was like a flyer.
Hollowhenge Geist?
Or Guardian or something. Hollowhenge Guardian, maybe.
Spirit? Something like that.
Hollowhenge Spirit, that might have been it. But we see flash and white you know?
Mhm. Oh yeah, Flash.
White
Flash
Mane
is a white
Lion,
ability too.
Deputy of Acquittals, even to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And blue. It's a white and blue thing.
Yeah, and green gets it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty much restricted to that color combination. Red can get it, I suppose.
Have they had? Oh,
They've had it in the
but
past.
Garden Hellkite. It was
Yeah.
like on Mythic.
Yeah, they
I don't know if
can
they-
get it, but I don't think black gets it at all.
Doesn't feel like they should have it.
Yeah, unless it was like on like a rogue themed card where it was. Well, I guess Thief of Notions is a black-blue flash creature, but it's blue.
Very easily, the blue
Yeah.
is the flash on that, I think. But this card's kind of cool. I'm trying to think how much we play tested this. I don't think we got a chance to play it too much. A little bit.
It's
It's okay.
The thing is, the
It's a
one
better
damage is
sideboard card.
yeah,
It's a
the
better
one
sideboard
damage
card.
is actually pretty negligible, as it usually is in most limited formats.
I could see it being good against like a token if they build enough
Yeah.
tokens.
Well, the thing about this one that's good is that you can block
and then
and then
sacrifice
sack
it.
after it's dealt damage.
So stop it, chump block a fatty, and then kill maybe all the small
Or
ones.
I was thinking like you can block something that has 2 toughness. If it survives, then you can sack this to kill it then, because
at the end of combat.
or during combat damage step after combat damage has been dealt.
Okay.
Because they're still attacking all the way through until combat is over.
And actually, it just throws off combat math for all your other blocks, too.
Yeah.
So you could have, like, 2 other blocks, and maybe
So-
they weren't going to kill them, but now you're like, okay, Demolition sack, so then
Mhm.
now your
I
guys
think this
are gonna
guy
die,
is
so.
going to be
He's
a
cool.
really good card for
Mhm.
limited.
Distance reward, 1 and a white, instant, target opponent sacks an attacking creature. If a green or blue creature is sacrificed this way, put 2 1/1 white soldier creature tokens onto the battlefield. So we've seen this just in core set now. Celestial Flare
Mhm.
being a 2 white sacrifice an
Yeah.
attacking or blocking creature. This is specifically an attacking creature. You do get an additional ability. This is also a sort of a little cycle
Yeah.
throughout the set.
This is to show that their enemy colors are blue and green, basically.
Mhm.
We needed a few cards to just reiterate that fact so
Mhm.
that,
Typically, white and blue and green are together.
yeah.
So now that on this plane they're at war with each other, it shows you that additional punishment happens through
Mhm.
some of the cards. Distance reward, I mean, we haven't gotten a chance to play test it yet. It is an uncommon, it's specific to attacking creatures, and they do get the choice then to
Mhm.
maybe not sacrifice a green or a blue.
Yeah.
So I think
But I
there's
think
enough factors at place where that ability is not too overpowered.
Yeah.
It feels okay.
this one is, I think it plays really well against the Majesty strategy for blue-green, who want to like maybe attack with their big fatty if you've got an army out already,
So they at least have to attack in with something else
Yeah.
too and play
Mhm.
it safe.
if they know you've got it. So
Mhm.
it's I really like it as far as
I don't think
what
it's
it can
too
play.
powerful
No.
either. I think you can wreck a green or
Yeah.
blue deck early if you're like 2 mana, make you sack your creature, and now I get 2.
2 guys, yeah.
Yeah, so you can really do some busted stuff early.
But
Um,
it's no different than playing Raise the Alarm then, except for you're also getting that creature out of there.
And I still feel like it's less abusive than like timely reinforcements. Ultimately, in New Realm
yeah,
would be.
for sure.
Timely just at a certain point felt ridiculous.
Well, and because you could pay life to go search up lands.
And it was
at that time, too.
yeah, it was also with like gut shot.
Yeah.
So it was like
So
I'm gonna gut
it's
shot
like,
your creature, and you still have more creatures. So now I'm
life.
gonna So now I'm gonna gain the life.
Yeah, Timely was really good.
Yeah.
Turned out to be really good.
Ethereal Restraints, 1 white instant. Target creature can't attack this turn, and it has draw a card. So this is kind of cool. This is representative of a card that we wanted to work well for the Inspire strategy
Mhm.
in white, since white red are
Yeah.
still
so
kind of
you'll see that
mashed up.
in the white, blue, and red cards, commons, you'll see that they each got 2 common cantrip cards. And then in green and black, they only got 1 common cantrip card. And that was just because of Inspire. We needed to push it a little harder to get them extra cards to keep that Inspire going over and over. So hopefully it works out. Like I said, we haven't really gotten the chance to play the Inspire strategy and get it work in the limited environment that we had done. So that's why I kind of want to do the build your own deck, so it's more like you actually did a whole draft instead of the way we were doing was just grabbing random piles of cards and making a deck out of the random pile we got.
Yeah, and I mean we've only maybe done like 8 to 10 games or something like that, so we still need some more play testing. But we made some good discoveries, I think, in just that amount of time.
Oh, for sure.
And we'd be happy to hear some criticisms that you have of cards or concerns.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well,
if you have a
straight up-
concern about a card, I'd love to debate on it and,
Yeah.
and see. And maybe you're right. I mean, I'm willing to admit that some stuff could have slipped through our fingers
Yeah.
and we didn't think about how it would be.
Well, it's the problem with two people looking at it. You know, the more people
Yeah.
that get to look at it, the better idea we have.
To a
of
certain
what-
extent.
Yeah.
I do notice that sometimes.
If too many people get to look at it and get their
Yeah, it ends
say
up in
it,
a.
then it's like
It almost ends up in a place where it wasn't even initially intended to be.
Mhm.
That does happen. And I've noticed that even when, after looking at how the actual creative team designs Magic cards, I do notice that sometimes when too many people are dipping their finger in the mix, the card sort of turns into a weird variation of what it was initially trying to be.
Yeah.
But in some cases, it also ends up really good, like Fiendslayer Paladin that we talked about earlier. So I do think overall having, I'd almost want to say like 5 or 6 people should really be looking at individual
I think that's
cards.
what design
But in this
teams
case,
generally are too.
I don't want you to think that we don't want your input though. So please send your input.
So think of it
definitely
like
be
this:
willing.
we're at the point where we're looking for like the playtesting side of it. So we are looking for the small minor changes, not necessarily
Drastic
the
card changes.
the dramatic overhaul to our cards.
That's
if
a good
we
way to
feel
put
like
it. Yeah.
there is something that's vastly overpowered, which I do not feel like we have anything
Or
like that
vastly
anymore.
underpowered.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to talk
Yeah,
about
if
that
it's
too.
vastly underpowered, but keep in mind that
Underpowered
sets-
cards are still.
sets need to have those underpowered cards. But if it's something that you feel like could be tweaked in a way to make it affect the strategy better, we want to hear that too. So.
But above all else, we just want to hear from you
Feedback,
guys.
yeah.
Glory of the Righteous. Here's another common. 2 and a white instant. Target creature gets +1/+0, gains flying and first strike until end of turn. Draw a card. So sort of a mashup. We've seen stuff similar to this in white. This one being unique because it has a cantrip attached to it. But I don't think it's overpowered.
No.
It played really well in playtesting. It's certainly a good combat trick.
Yeah, 3 mana is a lot to ask for your combat trick.
And you can get a 2-for-1 out of it,
Yeah.
absolutely. But you can also you can get burned pretty bad.
3 mana is a lot to ask for a combat
It
trick.
can get fizzled too.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to target the creature and they kill it, you don't get to get that cantrip.
Yeah.
So it is it's got a lot of
bouncing it, disperse it is in this set. So
Despite that, it is a very strong
Yeah,
trick.
yeah.
I think it's good. Guardian of the Hold. This was actually recently changed, but it's 4 and a white, 2/4 first strike vigilance. It's just Jake, you said you wanted more 5-drop
Yeah.
creatures, so we just sort of want to spread out the convert mana cost amongst the colors. We want to make sure there's a good spread of convert mana cost.
Yeah, we want you to have plays all across the mana and also be able to play something that's going to survive in the late game. And this guy originally was a 2/2 for 4 with first strike vigilance, and in the end, it's like there wasn't a lot of stuff white could do to stop 5 or not 5, but 3 power guys even, other than have multiple first strikers out. So this was the way to get white some answers to other people's mid and late game effects.
Next one's Hallowed Rebirth. This represents the white materialize strategy. So, like you said, black, white, and green have access to materialize. Hallowed Rebirth is 1 and 2 white instant. Put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of target creature card in your graveyard that was put there from the battlefield this turn. This is similar to Grim Return, but as you see, it's a little more narrow.
It's
But it's
only your
also
graveyard.
But it's also in white. I mean, white does get res. We've seen Resurrection.
Miraculous Recovery.
The Angel, or not the Angel, the one from Avacyn Restored, that's 5 mana. And it like boosts it if they're an Angel additionally or something like that. I forget, you know what I'm talking about though, right?
Oh, yeah. Defy Death. Yep.
Yeah. So that one, we've seen Resurrection in white.
Resurrection effects. It also, there's been other ones too that I'm sure I'm forgetting. Proclamation of Rebirth also.
Faith's Reward.
Yeah.
Which is not necessarily, I mean.
It's similar because it is that same turn, and actually All Sun's Dawn, or one of those other ones that, not All Sun's Dawn, but, what is the one that they banned?
Is it from like Mirrodin Block or
something? It was from
something?
Mirrodin Block.
I forget what the name of it is, but I do know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that one also is a similar effect. You know, stuff that died this turn gets to be brought back.
But I mean, this ability very flavorfully representative of how Materialize works, and this is a card that's an instant that essentially is doing a Materialize type effect. Hero of Tendon. Here's another materialized creature. It's a 1-mana 2/1 uncommon with materialized for 1 and a white. So this is one of the actual best materialized creatures since it's so cheap to materialize it. But I don't actually think this card's overpowered. I think it's excellent
Yeah.
limited. I actually think it's good enough for constructed.
The way that I look at materialized too is comparing it to Undying and how good Undying is.
Yeah, and Undying was excellent. And
I feel like there is a lot of leeway in materialized.
It's actually really
there's a cost associated.
It's actually
with
very similar to Undying because like Undying, if you were to exile this creature, you don't get to generate the materialize. So this is just a variation almost on Undying.
There is, you can discard a materialized creature and still get the effect. So it's kind of like Unearth. It's like a
different.
mashup.
Yeah.
There's no better way to say it.
But this is one of the better ones because it's so cheap.
Yeah.
Levain Court Mage. So this is another cycle that we've got in the set. Here's the first, the white Court Mage. 2 and a white. This is a vampire creature. So is this the only one?
This is the only white vampire right now.
Okay. Maybe later in the block we'll see some more. And just keep this stuff in mind when if you're thinking about designing a card. I mean, you could just, if you don't even mess with creature types, we can worry about that. But
totally.
if you had like a creature type in mind, this is sort of like the flavor that we're thinking of for this plane.
And additionally, like, I don't really want to do a vampire lord because the theme on vampirism within the Midoran society or whatever, which is what the White Kingdom is called, is that you are granted being a vampire, and it gives you like longevity and all that stuff. So it's restricted to people who earn it. It is not something that there should be a bunch of vampires walking around.
So it's pretty unique.
Yeah.
It's like a high level.
Yeah, it's like a mark of power and like a privilege, like a position within the court or the nobility of Medora or whatever.
All the court mages are 3-drops. They all have 2 abilities, one of which each enemy color, and they're both 1-mana tap abilities.
Yeah.
So this one is 2 and a white, 2/2, black and tap. Target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life, and then red and tap deals 1 damage to another target creature and you gain 1 life. We did another target creature on the red. Otherwise, she could use it on herself to sort of gain life. It just didn't make sense flavorfully. It actually coincided perfectly because it seems like now in M14 they're making the shift on the sacrifice effect in black, where they don't want it to be able to sacrifice itself anymore.
Unless it would generate an effect from that sacrifice.
Like Gnawing Zombie, I guess.
Or Maw of the Obsidian too.
So
like
in Dragon's Maze, So there's still that, but like the Bloodthorn Vampire style effect, originally they could sacrifice themselves. Can't do that anymore.
So Blood Baron is the new way they're going to do it.
And it is relevant too.
Cartel Aristocrat.
Because they can now they're able to active treason your actual sacrifice creature and then use it, to your own benefit. So it is strictly worse than it was.
But they can't
before.
Sacrifice it to itself.
It's flavorfully more correct though, so I understand why they did it. I like this Court Mage a lot. I think this is one of the stronger ones. It does seem like the red ability is just a lot more useful than the black one, but sometimes maybe you're just playing black-white, so you only have access to that.
If you're the weenie strategy too, the black ability might be pretty relevant late game when you're just trying to get the last few points of damage through too.
True, and we've seen this on Turd. What is it? The Zathrid.
Yeah, Acolyte Zathrid or Zathrid Acolyte.
I think it's Acolyte of Zathrid. But it's a 0. What is that? 0/1.
It's a 0/1 for 2 or 1, and then for 2 mana you can make somebody lose 1 life.
Just lose 1 life.
Yeah, 2 mana and tap.
So this is definitely an upgrade from that, but it's more color intensive. Master of the Skies. This is a 5-mana 3/1 flying first strike, and other creatures you control with flying have first strike. So we also have a rare in white that has sort of a boost for other flyers.
It's a small flying sub theme, but it's there.
Midoran Lancer is a rare 3-mana 3/2 first strike. It can't be countered, and then you prevent all damage that would be dealt to Midoran Lancer by green creatures. So this is sort of like I think you might have gotten sort of a good vibe from Fiendslayer Paladin, so wanted to shift it more. Originally we were going to design it so it was pro green. Yeah, it was going to be pro green, pro blue. I kind of like nowadays having if a creature is going to have protection, let's just make it one color.
Yeah.
When you have multiple protections on a creature, it starts to feel a little overwhelming.
Mhm.
And I think what's his name, the Dusk thing from Shadowmoor, where it had like 3 protections.
Oh yeah. What was that?
It was like it was a 5-man
Oversoul of Dusk.
Dusk, I think. It was something similar to that, but it just felt way too good when it was
Yeah.
like 3 protections. It's like
and like 2 of them are really relevant colors, and then 1 can't bounce it anymore.
yeah.
It
So
was pretty bad.
this one, like Fiendslayer Paladin, a little more versatile, but it's can't be countered. So there's obviously the Hose Blue, and then prevent all damage that would be dealt by green creatures. So there's the Hose Green. I like how it ultimately worked out.
The fact that you can still block with green creatures, it just doesn't do anything, is kind of, I'm happy with the way that this turned out.
And it actually hoses green pretty good since they can't fight with it even.
Yeah,
It still prevents the damage. And there's not necessarily green burn. So it is pretty damn close to pro green in terms of that.
But green can trample over 2 toughness really easily.
Mm-hmm.
So green even has its outs to it.
Manate of Kaldheim. This is the Planeswalker, the white one of the Planeswalkers. 2 and 2 white, 4 loyalty. +1, put a 0/2 white clear creature token onto the battlefield. +1 until your next turn, target creature is indestructible. And then -3, you get an emblem with if a source would deal damage to a permanent you control, prevent 1 of that damage. So we liked the idea that Sorin had, where it comes down, it has an emblem effect immediately, and Sorin survives. And that was actually an initial reason I think Sorin was overhyped. They were like, whoa, he gets an emblem immediately, and people can't target emblems. There's no way to deal with emblems. I don't think they're ever gonna print something that deals with emblems. That's
the only way to get rid of it, I think, is with the Karn Ultimate, is to restart the game with, then nobody has emblems, you know.
Is that is true? That is how it works?
Well, when you restart the game, you would clear every zone except for the one specifically called out by Karn, which is cards that are in exile from Karn stay there when you restart the game, and then you get them back.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that. Do you know that for a fact?
I'm almost positive that if you restart a game, you start it from .0.
We'll figure that out. Someone can comment me on that. I think you might be right, though. That's probably a way that emblems can
I think it's like a one-way around emblems, but it's a long way to get there.
So originally we had where Manade was going to, it was going to be -4 for emblem, and then it was going to be able to
prevent the damage
to you too. Yeah. I didn't like that as much. I felt like it might have hosed an aggro strategy maybe too much, if she could, especially if she could emblem immediately. I like it that I like the way that she ultimately turned out. She survives. She makes blockers, so she protects herself, which is good enough for me.
She makes your army more frustrating to deal with, but not like impossible to get through.
And she still is what white and blue wants to do, which is like, now it's like, do you want to deal with Manade? Because eventually it's going to make a bunch of blockers, you know, for stuff, and give your and keep in mind with Manade too, permanents you control. So actually her emblem protects her and other planeswalkers, which was an aspect of it that I really liked. She's like a protection for other planeswalkers because it prevents damage to permanents you control. So she comes down, you emblem with her, they have to at least do 2 damage to her to be able to kill her.
Well, they have to do 2 damage to her from one source.
A 2-power creature has to. At least a 2-power creature or greater is the only thing that's going to be able to kill her once she's emblemed.
Before anyone gets upset about the fact that 1/1s can't kill Manade if they drop the emblem right away, she doesn't ever kill anybody. She never will kill you.
She doesn't even have a means to kill.
She will never ever kill
somebody. She is purely support planeswalker, which is kind of unique. I like I like her better in the new generation of planeswalkers. In that she fills a role. So, and she's not overwhelming, she's not overpowered. New generation of planeswalkers they want to just be, they almost want to have that function where they're like mono-function cards. Like, Domray is a great example. It's like perfect green-red mashup. It's like searching for creatures off the top, fighting creatures on the board.
Think about like Shards and Zendikar block when those were both full together. You had Elspeth, you had a Johnny Vengeant, you had Jace that were all played in one deck, like 3 to 4 copies of each one. Now you see up to 4 copies of one planeswalker usually, in a deck, and if they have more than one Planeswalker, they're not running more than 2 of either one. You know, so they've really changed the way that Planeswalkers are run, and that's fine by me because having Planeswalker control deck out there where I have Elspeth now. Now I have a Johnny, so when you attack my Elspeth and I chump with the token, I'm going to tap that creature down. Now I have Jace. I'm going to bounce that creature. I'm going to create another token. I'm going to tap that
Yeah,
guy.
eventually it was cool. They just didn't realize how overwhelming.
Yeah.
Planeswalkers came in, and I will say this, it had a relatively smooth transition at first.
It
just kind of power crept too fast. It was a couple years of power creep that like just pushed over the threshold, and I don't fault them for it because I know that they had the best intentions in mind. It's just Magic players are smart, and they figured out ways to break being able to use abilities every turn like that.
Yeah, and I mean, even when you're playtesting, it's like you got to think that there can't be everybody at Wizards can't be playing to win every time. You know, you're gonna have your pet cards in the set that you want to play with and test. You know, stuff like that.
And it's not like they have hundreds of people out there playtesting.
Yeah.
You know? They have like a small creative development team.
Right.
And they have probably a small group of playtesters, and that's how they figured cards out. So they
have their future league or whatever, which is supposed to be for people to determine what the good standard decks are going to be, and they do that. But even still, you know, it's all about the personality of the player, what interests them, because having that the 3 Planeswalker deck where you're just running all of these impossible to get through Planeswalkers, or you need to stop each one, or the game's over for you, and then not having like a real way to deal with all Planeswalkers at once. I think that was what led to the depower of Planeswalkers, where they're bringing them more into niche roles instead of being like vast and like they can encompass a lot of different stuff.
I agree, and I like Minade. I'm really happy with her. I'm really happy with the other Planeswalkers.
She took a while, but she's good.
Malana Cleric. So here's an example of another white card that's got grouped with red, so they have access to Inspire as well. This is a 1 and a white 0/3 tap. You gain 1 life. I like this one, obviously better than Soulmender since it blocks well too. But this is a cool card. We play tested it with a little bit, and it's certainly not even that great in limited. Surprisingly, you'd think it would maybe play extremely well, but it actually feels just fine. If you're a late game deck, I could see it being beneficial. Serves as an early blocker, buys you some time to the late game. But even with the Inspire, it never feels certainly not too powerful for it.
Adding 1 life onto any random spell isn't necessarily good. It's similar to the cycle of Phyrexian spells from New Phyrexia that made you lose life.
This really shows you why Inspire was difficult to build for. Because you wanted, obviously, if you're putting Inspire on creatures, you want them to have some sort of beneficial tap ability to reward you for untapping it. So it was kind of tough to design cards that were balanced, but also had like a fun activated ability. So this represents sort of almost like a Soul Warden, Soul Mender mashup with Inspire, and I think this works. This is kind of a good direction for Inspire. That feels good. Molinak Shield Mage, here's another one. This one, even better. This is 3 and a white for a 2/3 Inspire, and it has tap. Target creature gets +0/+1 until end of turn. So note that it's not prevent 1 damage, which is cool.
Right. I think eventually that's totally going to be something that's going to happen, is the prevent 1 damage Inspire card in white. In the next set, or next 2 sets. But for now,
this one serves as a combat trick, so I like it a lot. And the beautiful part about this card is it really makes your opponent hesitant if you have cards in hand with this out, because then it's like, do you have the Inspire? Because if you have +0/+2, if you can make it +0/+2, this combat's going to go a lot worse for me.
And it kind of works almost like a banding thing, where you can double block with this and something else, and if you do have the instant in your hand or whatever, that's just whatever instant,
Yeah, but also on attacks. You can be like, oh, I'm going to swing with my Shield Mage and this other creature.
And then Inspire.
Now I get to protect whatever one you blocked.
And that was kind of cool about it.
It's versatile. It's versatile.
That it works almost like Vigilance if you just play sorcery after combat even.
Or attack in, they don't block, then they're going to crack back, and then you do your Inspire.
Yeah.
So it's really like all sorts of different...
There's a lot of ways to play with it. It needs to be fleshed out, and I think the rest of the block having more instants and sorceries is really going to help it. But because you're on a limited card budget as far as how many instants and sorceries you can fit in the first set, it is probably a little more difficult to make Inspire work initially.
Yeah, I agree. The foundational setup for Inspire was difficult because we had to worry about not only having good instants and sorceries that worked alongside it, but good activated abilities on Inspired creatures.
Yeah.
Never-ending Story. Here's another. Here's an odd rare card that sort of functions as a...
This is the stony silence of this set.
Yeah, it's narrow, but it's flavorfully cool enough where I think it's okay. And there's junk rares all the time anyway. So this is 1 and a white enchantment. Whenever a card is exiled from your graveyard, you may put that card on the bottom of your library. It's flavorfully correct because it works with the materialize strategy. You get to exile it, and then you're recycling those creatures. So if you have sort of shuffle effects, you can hope to see those materialized creatures again.
Yeah. It works pretty well as a combo with Rest in Peace, so you can actually never get rid of your graveyard, or
I didn't even
always
think
have
about that.
Forever deck. But
pretty narrow. Certainly not
super narrow.
Certainly not limited. Well, I mean, it's playable, but you're not happy when you're playing
there
it.
is
there's
alternatively there's a card that in black that exiles your entire graveyard. If eventually, and I really think I want to push more mill cards in blue just to get a secondary strategy in blue. If that becomes something, this is at least a way to reset. If we have something we can put a exile all graveyards effect or whatever, just to even balance it more. But whatever.
Reigns of Eternity. Next card, 3 and a white enchantment. Whenever you play a card, you gain 1 life. So I was was just sick of those. In M14, they have the staffs. Before they had the Dragon's Claws and the Kraken's Eye and all that crap. And they just, let's be honest, they just don't see play. They're not good enough. The only exception was Dragon's Claw out of the sideboard
against red.
Yeah,
and that was typically for red decks.
Yeah, even if you're a control player, you can't even play it against red. It's strictly Dragon's Claw is good
when you're red deck playing against red deck.
Only time, and then because it adds up to a lot of life. But this, I wanted to actually be playable. And I think it is. This is similar to a card where it was whenever you cast a spell, you gain 1 life.
It's one more than Contemplation,
Yeah. So this rewards you for getting lands too, but it doesn't reward you for self-mill or anything like that. It's strictly just cards you play. But I like it. I think it's not overpowered, and I'm not even sure if it's limited playable, but
it could be good alongside Inspire if you get the instant sorcery support for it too. I mean, we don't really know necessarily how the Inspire strategy plays out, is what it kind of comes down to.
Yeah, and or the uncommons in general. We still have to play test and make sure there's no broken aspects of that. I mean, I have a feeling we're gonna have to do some changes to this just because we haven't had the intensive, play test times that I've wanted. But we're okay with that. I'm okay with I'm planning on posting all of these to my blog. I want to post the full set. I think we're only going to have time to go through the white cards here, and then maybe in the next podcast we can start going individually through it again. And hopefully by that time we'll hear a couple comments from people so we can address those on the podcast. I'd like that a lot too. Raise the Army. This is a 5-drop sorcery. Put 2/2/2 black zombie creature tokens on the battlefield. So sort of odd seeing it, but it's a white card that's interacting with its black, ally, producing black creatures. Extremely similar to the Night Watch from Gatecrash.
And that was pretty much the inspiration for it.
And Night Watch is actually better since it gives you Vigilance Knights, and this only gives you zombies. But I still like this card, and it's supposed to show you how this plane is different. Reckoner Spirit, 1 and a white, 2/1 flyer. So we've seen this in
a million times. Mistral Charger.
Pegasus, Stormfront Pegasus. Yeah. So we've seen it before. This is just a spirit creature. Relic Breaker. Here's another. Here is another detonate creature. So 1 and a white, 2/1, detonate an equipment, and when you sacrifice it, you gain 4 life. So obviously very narrow in what it hits, but detonate is all over the board. We've got it I really like Detonate because it's versatile. I mean,
The
you
thing
can
about
go anywhere with
the
it.
thing about Detonate is that it has to be narrow. You can't just be like detonate
Permanent
a
every
creature.
time,
Yeah,
yeah.
or yeah.
Or even a creature.
I
As
mean,
you'll see, what we'll
yeah.
have, you can have specific creatures
Yeah.
like types of types of creatures.
Colors
Yeah.
or creature type. I mean, there's so many places to take Detonate, but if you do just Detonate this,
If it's too
Detonate that,
generalized, I think that's where
then
you
it's
start
like,
having.
oh, well,
too
why would
much.
why would I play this over this? You know, at least with the Relic Breaker and the Numek Blaster, which you'll see at some other time, they can both destroy an artifact. Relic Breaker destroys an equipment and gains you 4 life. Numek Blaster destroys any artifact and deals 2 damage when you sack it. They're the exact same cost and power toughness, but I felt like because this one was more specific, the payoff for sacking it or getting the Detonate part of it should be better than what the Numek Blaster was.
Mhm.
So, you know, like there is that small overlap already in this set, but I felt like it was justifiable.
And tons more places to go with Detonate, so I'm looking forward to that. I'd love to see some ideas on that. Yeah, I mean, obviously this one, pretty narrow in what it can hit, but it's still part of that cycle of the gaining 4 life when you sack it, and it's a relatively good beater. Certainly limited playable. Rygel, Blade of Medora. So here's how did you want her name to be pronounced?
Rygel, that's
Okay.
fine.
So it's a 7 mana 3/5 flying double strike vigilance, and whenever another creature dies, return that card to the battlefield under your control. Pretty powerful card, but keep in mind it's mythic. It's very color intensive. It's
I've
expensive.
had to depower it twice now. It was 5/5, brought it down to 4/5, and then brought it down to 3/5.
So double striking still hits for
6,
at least 6. If you have buff spells, even
fact that
getting more explosives than
It's
that.
vigilant too, and it kills on defense and gets those creatures back. This card is bonkers.
It is.
Should not be a 5/5. So.
But it's a mythic, so it's not like it's easy to get out.
See unlimited at all, but it is a good card.
Or play. I mean, 7 mana is
Not at all
always difficult to get, and it's color intensive. So a lot of restrictions that make it difficult to play, but obviously a fun card when you can play it. Righteous Fury, 4 and 2 white. Here's another rare. It's a sorcery. It's the board white of the set.
Yeah. This is a reprint too.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. Destroy all tapped creatures. You gain 2 life for each creature destroyed this way. So it works fine in this set. And 6 mana is usually pretty narrow and being played outside of limited. I can see it being difficult to play in a constructed environment, just a little too expensive. Rogue's Agility is a pretty cool card. So 1 white instant. Target creature you control deals 2 damage to each creature blocking or blocked by it, and then return that creature to its owner's hand. So it's almost like a mashup of white with red, but we've actually seen it in white before. In Avacyn Restored, the Righteous Blow as an actual way to deal damage to attackers or blockers, and this is doing a similar thing.
Like Harm's Way. I mean, there are those small white cards that do that.
What was the planar cast?
Sunlands. Yep, which was a reprint or color shift of Strafe from Red. Anyway. So
obviously they were willing to dip into it in Planar Chaos when they were exchanging color.
I don't think. See, attacking or blocking damage dealing is never out of white's.
No, they've always been able to sort of deal with in some way, usually through destruction or exile, attacking or blocking creatures, but definitely damage too. And this one's cool because it's sort of like a white main lion effect attached to it too. Surjat Soulcaller, here's another rare, 2 and a white, 1/3. Creature tokens you control enter the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on them, and then tap, prevent all damage that would be dealt to target creature this turn. So it's sort of almost like a master healer. As in the prevent damage aspect. But this obviously pairs really well with Materialize, boosting all the creatures that you materialize back. So showing its interaction with the green and the black that it's allied with. Sky Warden, here's another detonate creature, 3 and a white, 3/2 flyer, and detonate a token creature. So strict upgrade from Assault Griffin, but still narrow detonate ability. So it's like a little icing on the cake ability. If they have some materialized creature that you really don't want them to bring back, or that you can't afford for them to bring back,
you're not going to use it against their 1/1 goblin or their 2/2 zombie.
Yeah, maybe if they were going to bring back their Intimidate materialized creature though, and you had no way to block it.
Right, right.
This would be like, oh, okay, well at least I have an out to it.
Or
So
the 5/3 Trampler.
yeah,
You know,
because that
one's
creature's just
just a
better.
pain in the ass. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
or even the rare one that's like gonna destroy a creature.
well, it still gets to destroy a creature,
I
but
guess because it gets to into
but
the
this
battlefield.
would also block and kill that in combat, so it would they'd have to target this most likely anyway. But then the green creatures, there's Nibiran Rocks, which is a 3/2 Trampler that you can materialize, and then also the 3/3 Spectral Troll.
So basically, it's just like if you can't deal with some creature they're
Mhm.
materializing, it's nice to have access to this, but still very narrow.
And it might prove itself to be a little
Better
better
in full
later
block,
on.
yeah. Spectral Commander, 4, and here's another rare, 4 and 2 white, 5/5 flying spirit. Other creatures you control with flying get +1/+1. So just you know, an expensive lord, but he's cool. Actually, I like the picture you ended up getting on him.
Yeah.
Did you change that one a little bit, or?
I don't know if I might not have had a picture for a while
Oh,
because
maybe
I
that
didn't
was it.
find the right
Okay.
one, but this one I was really happy to find.
Yeah, it's cool. Timnin Falconer, this is 1 and 2 white, 1/2 human rogue, and when it enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 white bird creature token with flying onto the battlefield, and then it's got materialized for 6 mana. So obviously very expensive materialized, but it's cool because it's sort of like Seller of Songbirds, very similar to Seller of Songbirds,
Yeah.
no doubt.
Is
But
the Seller of Songbirds
Yeah.
with materialized, but that's fine. I was really
little more
happy
color
to,
intensive,
I was
but, yeah.
happy to get it to work this way, I think. 6 mana might seem expensive, but I think the fact that you are getting a total of 4 creatures off this guy over the course of a few turns is reason enough to make it cost so much.
yeah. So it's a cool card. I'm digging materialized still. I like it. Unrivaled Strength. Here's an example of, we've got a couple auras in this set that are beneficial for you or negative for your opponent, both with almost like a different set of stuff that happens. This one is 2 and a white, enchant creature. Enchanted creature can only attack or block alone. As long as you control enchanted creature, it gets +3/+3. So I like it in that it makes your, if you want to play it on your opponent's creatures, it makes their attacks much more narrow.
It's almost like a pacifism.
Almost,
like
almost.
For the one
They still
creature, they
like it,
can attack.
let's
with
say
it.
they have like 3 creatures, 2 of which are like 2/2s, and they have like the 5/5. I like playing this on the 5/5 because at least they can't get in with their other creatures at that point.
Yeah.
So it's not even like remarkably good detrimental aura, but if you play it on your creature, you know, it's a huge boost.
It definitely
So-
eliminates a blocker though too. When you have a horde of creatures and you can just attack in with all of them.
Good point. So late game, it's good. When you want to play it aggressively, you can be like, okay, now you can't. You can
And
only
actually,
attack. You can only block with that alone.
If you have just one flyer and putting the +3/+3 on it and getting in every turn with that guy is pretty
So
good.
it's a versatile aura,
It's
but
a huge block actually with the Reckoner Spirit. It's
yeah,
something to think about.
it is. But it's an uncommon aura as well, and the most similar one we saw with it was like Divine Transformation.
And
which is
there's
4 mana.
multiple bounce effects in this set too. So
I don't think it's overpowered. It is very strong though. It's uncommon, but, so I don't think it's
it
too
might
good.
need to be double white colorless, but
I might not be opposed to that.
yeah, that could just
But-
be a switch we make.
Granted, it does make it so they can only attack or block alone, and it still puts a target on your creature. Valkyrie of Medora. This is 3 and 2 white, 4/4 flying vigilance, and it has lifelink as long as you control a black creature, and it has first strike as long as you control a red creature. Cool rare. It's got little flavorful mashup of abilities being generated by its allied colors.
Yeah, these cards, and there's one for each color that gets a benefit for having one of its allied, in this set, allied color creatures out. They're not easy to get the full, like, double ability set.
Yeah, so more likely you're either going to have lifelink or you're going to have first strike.
Right. So don't look at it as, like, a
Baneslayer Angel.
Look at it as, like, either an Exalted Angel or, you know, whatever a first strike flying guy is.
Wordbreaker. Here's another detonate creature. 2 and a white, 2/2, and it has detonate and enchantment. And when you sacrifice it, you gain 4 life. So this, you know, still narrow, but I like that it hits very relevant enchantments. Here's an actual out for that, you know, the divine transformation we were just talking about, and you get to gain some life in the process. So this is actually really good against beneficial auras, since it not only nets you life, but it destroys the thing, and that, you know, usually deals a lot of damage right away.
Yeah, yeah.
When people play auras, it's typically what they're doing.
Right.
White of Levain, here's the last white card. 2 white, 2/2 first strike zombie soldier. So here's the only white zombie that we've seen. And it has detonated creature with power 4 or greater. So this is the only creature besides the Archon that can actually hit creatures in white. But notice that it's still pretty narrow, and it fits in sort of with the Agent of Rigel sort of thing, where it affects power 4 or greater creatures.
Like that's a white theme.
Yeah, they also had the Reprisal.
Reprisal, yeah.
So you're right. They've sort of classically done that anyway.
Radiance Judgment. Yeah, the 4 or greater thing is totally, even Intrepid Hero I think is 4 or greater. Destroy a creature with power 4 or greater.
All right, so I'm gonna try my best to figure out the sizes and get these all uploaded to my blog, and I'd love to hear some feedback from you guys. And I'm probably gonna direct people in the YouTube videos too, to sort of head that direction, and I'd love the input. So if you're feeling like you have a say on, or you want to have a say on it, be sure to check out the blog post that I'm going to have up at least in the next couple days. I'm going to try to do it tonight, but it's a lot of cards, and I need to see how difficult it is.
Yeah, and maybe we just put up one color, like white, since we've already gone through the full spoiler.
Maybe I do it over 5 or 6 blogs or something like that. But let me see how complicated it is.
There's a lot of information to get up there, that's for sure.
So that's going to be it for that. Let's just quickly do some M14 draft here to top it off. If you haven't been watching my videos too closely, my draft videos, I've really been learning a lot about monocolor. I've heard some pretty negative feedback in terms of forcing monocolor, and I guess I'm starting to take some of your criticisms to heart. You may be right. Sometimes I'm sacrificing power for consistency, but I'm not sure that's the wrong strategy yet, and I don't think anybody really is. It's still early enough where that's an undecided thing. But I can tell you right now, I've been having massive amounts of success going monocolor. So when I can make it work, even if you correctly argue that I'm sacrificing power for making sure I'm monocolor, I'm not sure it's wrong yet. They really have made the monocolor strategy in this format work surprisingly well.
I mean, the last set was multicolor. The last core set was multicolor, and then into a multicolor.
Because that's true. Because you had the boar and the stuff, and that cycle.
Yeah, that whole cycle really pushed you to go multicolor.
Yeah,
and not
specifically
only that,
ally color,
but Gem of Becoming, and also
and you also had all of you had all the rare lands, which we don't have here. You have Shimmering Grotto, which I have yet to play in this.
And it doesn't really seem like there's a real payoff to playing it unless you're Sliver deck and you need access to all 3 of those colors.
And also, I mean, keep in mind there are a lot of double color mono spells. You know what I mean? That are powerful.
Yeah, like Rumbling Baloth alone is very good.
Yeah, so it's difficult to splash. Even with Darksteel Ingot. And,
Oh yeah, and I forgot the depth in there, but
and Burdenhaven or whatever.
Those are Burdenhaven's at least a common, but Ingot's an uncommon.
Okay.
Ooh, Colonian Tusker is good.
Yes. All right. So we've opened Bone-Sized Sliver. Pretty cool. 4 mana 2/2 Sliver creatures you control have double strike. I mean, it's a 4 mana 2/2 double strike. That's pretty good. I'm not opposed to that. I've done every monocolor strategy except white now, but if I do Bone-Sized Sliver, I'm probably just going to want to move into green-white. Obviously, very good with. I'm willing to try it. I haven't tried Bone-Sized Sliver out. Okay. I like it more than the Lifelink one in black.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I definitely like it more than the Lifelink one.
People were also criticizing me a little bit that I wasn't giving Siphon Sliver enough credit, but my kind of problem with it is to me it's like a more expensive child, and I know I said this in the last video, but in case people on the podcast haven't heard it, I don't like it as much because there's only 1 blue and 1 black sliver. I don't like going that direction. It feels like a weird mashup at that point.
You can go black-green.
Trying to make that work just seems more difficult. You're putting more pressure on yourself.
I've played against
Bone-Sized Sliver I feel good about, though, because Double Strike on itself, it already is attacking in for 4.
I played against somebody who was playing Siphon Sliver as the expensive Child of Night, and it did not work that well.
All right, well, here's the thing. We've got pacifism in here, but we just were past the Predatory Sliver, And
Predatory Sliver is like the sliver to pick up if you want to go into sliver strategy, in my opinion.
I'm sure people want to see me try and make the sliver strategy work. I mean, arguably pacifism's the pick here, but let's face it, there's 100% no way that predatory sliver is going to come back around.
Yeah. And there's no way pacifism tables, but at least with predatory sliver,
we can try and make a sliver strategy work. We may not be able to. I'll grant that.
Predatory sliver is still a bear. Bone slice sliver's still a 2/2 double strike.
But come on, I mean, you guys want to see a sliver strategy work, right? I haven't seen it work, and there's plenty of white and green slivers that we can pick up, or at least try to. And like, I might even be willing to experiment with red splash too, if I can.
Well, isn't the
do some sort of
white one a 2/2 that gets vigilance?
Yes, yeah.
So
no, I like that one a lot. I think that one's good. I mean, it does sort of suck passing the pacifism. Looks like there's some strong blue cards in here as well. But let's see if we can make a sliver mashup work. I'm not opposed to trying it here.
There's another sliver.
I don't really like the 7-drop one. I'd rather do either Griffin Sentinel or Charging Griffin. Fire Shrieker also proven itself to be really good. You know, I'm not opposed to the Fire Shrieker. I really do like Charging Griffin a lot.
I do too.
I like equipment a lot, though. I guess if we already have Bonsai Sliver, maybe we don't need the Fire Shrieker. But
that's only if we're all slivers.
Yeah, this is an uncommon, and it's proven itself to just be really sick defensively,
if we
aggressively.
just like push for flyers now, we can really make use of the Fire Shrieker.
And we're not married to slivers yet. Yeah. I was just sort of, I'm willing to explore that direction, so we can see what's more open. I mean, I'd really like to make it work since there's like mana weft and stuff too, and even the sliver construct's good with the Bonsai Sliver and predatory. But let's take the Fire Shrieker. All right, here's our mana weft. So, wow, also a Johnny's Chosen and Imposing Sovereign. But let's take the mana weft at this point. Then we'll have 3 slivers by pick 4. I think that'll be really fun.
Yeah.
And mana weft's still good with Bonsai and predatory. So good white creatures near and the Johnny's Chosen and the Opposing Sovereign. I really do like Johnny's Chosen a lot. I think it's a
cool card.
It's a really strong card. Opposing Sovereign not that great, so I'm not sad about passing that. But let's pick up the mana weft now and continue making slivers work. All right, I actually missed a Voracious Worm, like actually getting the best possible bonus off of it.
Oh no,
Brindleboar.
Oh.
I didn't even think about. I didn't make the connection until I had already resolved my Voracious Worm in a recent draft video I recorded. It didn't actually make a difference ultimately because the next turn he played Liliana's Reaver.
Oh.
So he would have had a defense against my 6/6 anyway. But it was a mistake. It was definitely the right play to do. So Voracious Worm actually works remarkably well alongside the
Brindleboar.
Alongside Brindleboar. Really, yeah, and Brindleboar typically you see a couple. Spore Mound I like a lot too.
Brindleboar is kind of cool because it works with the white enchantment that gives you angels too.
Spore Mound might arguably be better here.
Because we don't have the life gain yet.
I think I actually want the Spore Mound, even though Voracious Worm is a 2-drop. I've come to like Spore Mound quite a bit. I think it's a
Master?
good. Yeah, I think we take the Master of Diversion here pretty happily. There's also Plummet, Frost Breath, decent cards in here, but it feels like with a 6th pick Master, we may be in the right colors, or I'm not sure yet, but we'll find out.
Well, we haven't even really been going or picking a lot of white yet. But
no, not at all. I mean, we're just exploring, seeing what's open. I'd like to make slivers work since I haven't really gone down that strategy, and having 3 already makes me feel kind of good. Another Ground Shaker Sliver. Unfortunately, it's just a really unimpressive sliver. I just don't like it. Obviously good with the Bonsai Sliver. 5/5 double strike trample is good, but 7 mana is just
so expensive.
It's just so
not a good enough payout.
It's just so restrictive. Let's take the Capation Knight. I like it more than the Suntail Hawk.
Yeah. First strike seems relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Dawn Strike.
All right, we can take the Paladin here. I'm okay with that. Some people have been saying this card's crap. I think,
really?
But yeah. They just don't like it that much, but I think it's good.
I think in green-white, where you have access to giant growth,
it makes combat more difficult, definitely. And we've actually screwed up against Dawn Strike Paladin that one time with the tokens. Someone called me out pretty hard in the comments on that, but understandably, we screwed it up. So
what did we do?
I think we attacked into it, and we didn't actually net any additional damage. It just like ultimately cost us the token. So it was a stupid play, but stupid plays happen. All right, I think we'll Probably take Bramble Crush for the sideboard. I don't know if we're even going to need Siege Mastodon. We'll probably see some more
Bramble
later.
Crush at least kills Planeswalkers too.
Yeah, so this is at least a Jace out that we can sideboard into. Alright, we can take the Verdant Haven here. Not necessarily necessary for this deck, but I typically don't like to play Suntail Hawk too much. So I'm cool with Verdant Haven in case maybe we want to go down a red route some sort with those slivers. If we see like Battle Sliver or Striking Sliver, try out the Naya Sliver strategy. It's probably pretty difficult to do, but whatever. We'll take Rod of Ruin here for sideboard. It's a foily as well. Alright, we can take a Suntail Hawk now. Just cut some more white and some red here. I'd prefer to not go red, but in case we do, I guess we'll take a Canyon Minotaur, and someone can go black. Alright, so only 3 slivers so far, but pretty good ones. I know I passed the Ground Shaker, what is his name? Ground Shaker sliver, but he's too pricey. I don't want to pay 7 mana for slivers. It's cool getting the Bonsai. Like I said, I think he's good on his own. If we see some constructs, we can definitely throw them in here since we have 3 pretty relevant ones alongside them. Does look like we're just going to be doing some green-white. Decent pack 1. Probably want to end up cutting Verdant Haven eventually. Be cool to make a sliver strategy work. That'd be really cool. A lot of people have said how difficult it is to make work. I mean, because Predatory just works so well on his own, you know, it's sort of an issue. Alright, wow. Quite the choice in here. This doesn't look like we need to do Hunt the Weak necessarily. Probably just want the pacifism. There's also Elvish Mystic, which I do like a lot. I think Elvish Mystic's a phenomenal card. I'd rather have the pacifism though. It's some really hard removal. And it's really hard removal. We want it, I think. Also some good, some Chandra's Outrage is good. Tidebinder Mage looks like it's going to be pretty decent against us too. But
Fortify is a really good card too.
Yep, Fortify's good. But we're just going to slam the pacifism. It's straight up hard white removal. Awesome. Just amazing alongside Master of Diversion, which is a card I've really come to love a lot. That would be, I'm sure that'd be a mainstay in your mono white deck. I'd like to eventually play mono white, and then I'll be able to say that I've played every single mono color. I don't know which one's my favorite. You know, mono blue felt really good. Divination's Opportunity, Time Ebbs, Claustrophobias.
Time Ebb and Claustrophobia together are really crazy.
All right, well, we can take the Sliver Construct here. It's also Oromancer, Trollhide's good.
Really good.
Let's continue down slivers. Construct, I guess, the least exciting one, but we have 2 relevant 2-drop ones, and Bonsai with it is still pretty damn good. So let's make slivers work. It's cute, right? People want to see it, I'm sure. I have yet to build successfully like a straight up. I think I might have done it
before, but
it's difficult. I might have done a stream where I had it, but we should be able to find maybe a couple.
Multiple people want to be in that strategy each time.
Ooh, Foil Nightmare. That's kind of hot. Stonehorn Chanter in here. Another Trollhide. Divine Favor.
I like the Trollhide.
Yeah, I like Trollhide too. Trollhide actually feels like the best beneficial aura because if you have the mana to support it, they only get 1 opportunity really to 2-for-1 you, and then as long as you have regen mana, your creature's safe. So I like how Trollhide. It's sick with Bonsai Sliver.
Yeah, I like how it fits in.
Pretty crippling.
Good on Master of Diversion too.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow, lots of black and lots of corrupt.
Ring of 3 Wishes, unfortunately a little bit too slow, but there's really not that much else in here anyway, and since this is a mythic, I think I'm just going to take it for Commander. Something I'd kind of like to add to my Commander deck. So I'm going to pass a bunch of good black spells. I don't think we're going to go down that route. And Solemn Offering.
It's just a ton of good black spells too. If you were mono black, that was your pack. Into the Wilds.
Yeah, wow. Maybe we're being passed a lot of black this way. If we were to go black,
Festering Newt. And we've passed a Festering Newt. Last pack was Quag Sickness, double corrupt Festering Newt.
We can play Into the Wilds. It's okay. It's not great, I admit, but it actually functions as close to green ramp as you can get. It's not very good, I admit. and I would not necessarily like to main deck it, but we may be forced to. I'm not sure yet. All right, we can do the Oromancer here. It's decent with the pacifism if
And
they
we have a
find.
Troll Hide too.
Yep. So Oromancer's good enough.
And we have Into the Wilds.
We do look like we're getting cut, I admit, but we can try and make it work. Let's take a second Sliver Construct.
Okay.
Advocate of the Beast also
Yeah, I
very
was thinking
good,
that too,
but we don't currently have any beasts, and
if we're able
I'm
to
still
pick up
gonna
a second Predatory Sliver, that
Yeah,
Sliver
then the-
Construct will really pay off.
yeah. I mean, we're being risky here, but that's
Dawnstrike.
okay. Yeah, we can take that or the Chanter. I think the Chanter ultimately is a little too overpriced, so let's just do the Dawnstrike. I mean, it's only one more mana, but the difference between 5 and 6 is actually really huge.
Yeah.
And Troll Hide on the Dawnstrike, like you said, very good.
Pick the Congregate.
We can take Congregate. We're not likely to play it. I guess we're not likely to play Shimmering Grotto either, so okay. Whatever.
Take the Cauldron.
Yeah, we can take the Cauldron. Doesn't function amazingly well with anything we have right now, but it's totally a playable card.
Yeah, but we also pass 2 Festering Newts.
Alright, we can take Divine Favor here. Actually, if you're going to play any of the Beneficial Auras, I was saying earlier how crap Beneficial Auras are in this set just because there's so much good spot removal. The red, the black, the white, all of the removal, it's in like all the colors is very strong. So it's tough to play Beneficial Auras, but this one is very good against an aggressive strategy. Being able to gain that life is very relevant. Alright.
Take the Tutor.
Yeah, I don't think we're playing black. I think at this point we're pretty much stuck in green green white. And like I said, I knew that we were very much risking falling into a spot where we were going to have a hard time making a sliver strategy work. We still only have 3. That's the problem. Or I guess we have 5 now with the sliver constructs. But here we can take another Mana Weft and
player here too. But
Deadly Recluse as well.
I like Mana Weft though.
Well, I'm gonna go with the sliver still here. Not even that amazing with the Bonsai, but it's a good ramp spell in general. Foil Lead Arcanist would be sweet for Commander. But there's also Deadly Recluse, which is arguably better. But you know what? I'm not afraid to go slivers or try it out. I almost wish we had like an X spell. We might be able to make 16 lands work because we're a relatively low mana curve, and we've got multiple constructs with the Mana Wefts. But a lot of good green cards in here. But let's make the Mana Weft work if we can. Enlarge is a really good. Really good. It's a winning card on the Dawnstrike especially. It's a game flipper.
Even Bonsai actually.
So Enlarge is a great pick.
Sentinel.
Yep, taking the Sentinel here, absolutely. Trying to get some more slivers. I really like the 3-drop one too, if we could find that.
Flare, Advocate,
Hunt the Weak, Advocate. I think we have enough creatures. Let's get some removal.
Celestial Flare.
So yep, let's take the Flare. Hunt the Weak also good, just not necessarily in our deck. We have sort of a weaker.
We have cheaper guide, or like 2/2s most likely.
And with the Mana Wefts, the double white requirement shouldn't be very difficult, I wouldn't think. Giant Growth.
I like Giant Growth.
We'll get a Trick. Griffin Sentinel good too, but we're actually pretty good on creatures. So I like Giant Growth more than Show of Valor as well.
Yeah, it's much better with Dawnstrike.
Yeah, and since we have 2 of them, pretty relevant. It's also just sick with the Bonsai Sliver.
Yeah.
Alright, we take Mystic now. I don't think we need a second Fire Shrieker. What do you think about Savage Summoning? I know it seems like a really weak card, but and especially in this deck. But I can see times where this card could actually be playable. It would function almost as like the only thing it can function as I have a creature and now I can flash it in and surprise block something. Like it's actually good with Dawnstrike. Flash in is a 3/5. I gain life. I kill your creature. Now I can attack you back with a Vigilant 3/5 that you're not expecting.
No, it's true.
So there's like places where I think Savage Summoning is actually playable. I would just much prefer to have a Mystic, especially if we might do 16 lands.
I don't feel like Savage Summoning has a good enough payoff.
We're probably not doing the Hawks now. We can do another Divine Favor. We can also do Angelic Wall. Maybe we want that instead. Let's get it for sideboard. I don't think we're main decking it, but we may not even be doing Divine Favor. Hive Stirrings. Yeah, let's make that work.
Deadly Recluse?
Yeah.
Or Celestial Flare?
But no, I like the Recluse more. I think Recluse holds down the fort a lot better, and tabling it actually is kind of nice. So it looks like our Pack 2 is really where we got screwed on our colors. Pack 1, I think it's probably because we passed that pacifism early on.
That's kind of what I was thinking too. We didn't see much white at all.
I wasn't sure that we weren't gonna table the Predatory Sliver. Unfortunately, we didn't get a second one. I was kind of hoping that we would, But I'm not gonna worry about it. I don't even think we need the Verdant Haven now that we have all this ramp.
Encroaching waste?
Yeah, why not? In
EDH?
case. We'll take the. I actually like Brindlebore. I don't have any problems with him. Advocate,
wow.
tabling that, really nice. So we can actually. I think we'll have a fairly good set of creatures.
Probably cut into the wild.
Advocate, not even that good in this deck because we don't have any beasts, but he's still fine as just a 2/3. You know,
Yeah, that is
2/3
sad that we
3.
don't have a beast. Brindlebore is a boar.
So I'll look. We may be playing all our slivers. I'm pretty sure that we are, but
Probably don't need Cauldron or Into the Wilds.
yeah. So we actually have some cuts to make. I think actually Fog was something that I was debating playing in a mono green when I was a little bit short on playables. I think Fog's fine, especially when you're against a deck where it's a true like War of Attrition, who can get in the most damage to win the race.
Yeah, racing.
Fog at that point,
Fog
yeah.
is like great.
So let's just make the deck. Fell a little bit short, I absolutely admit. We didn't get the second Predatory to really capitalize on having the Bonsai, but it
Not
happens
getting
with
two
slivers.
Predatory slivers seems so unreal, you know? Like,
Yeah, since it's a common, but it's tough. It's
Yeah.
totally playable on its own, so I
yeah,
understand.
it is the bear of the...
Despite that, I
Okay.
still think this deck turned out fine.
Mhm.
I think ultimately we're going to be able to make it work just fine. It fell a little bit short, though, no doubt. I admit. All right. This is actually 23. I said I wanted to do 16 lands, but I guess I can play 17 still. We have quite a few
Yeah,
double green, double
two
white.
mana weft slivers.
Yeah, and the sliver constructs too. But that's okay. Let's just play 17 lands. We have some.
You also have Elvish Mystic.
We have a lot of ramp. I mean, I guess we could. We have rewards though for getting additional lands.
You're
Let me look what else though. I mean, we want to be able to equip. We do want to always be able to play our spells. I guess mana wefts do look kind of unexciting when you're running 17 lands. I guess Trollhide also a mana sink.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have enough mana sinks where it's justified? And that I can't quite answer. I can see this getting mana flooded.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I really don't want to get screwed with these double colors, which I have consistently kind of had happen when I play the two color deck.
I see.
I do think this deck's a little bit lackluster, I admit, but I wish we'd gotten almost like some sort of X spell, because I do feel like
a Windstorm would be nice to have out of the board because we do have tons.
Yeah, we didn't get any plummets either, so definitely some shortcomings to this deck. But I feel comfortable playing with 17 lands, and we'll try out. We have a mini little sliver sub theme going on. I really would have liked a Ranger's Guile for some protection too or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we did get cut pack 2. That hurt our deck a little bit. And getting cut on the slivers kind of hurt too. It might have just been no one opened them. But yeah, like Jake said, it would have been nice to get 2 predatory slivers. That really, I think, would have put this deck into the next level of sliver strategy. I'm extremely surprised we only saw 1 Sentinel sliver. This isn't like a super high pick, but just being a cheap sliver.
Feel like, it's sliver strategy is people want to push it when they see their first predatory sliver or whatever.
I'm not heartbroken about it anyway.
We got enough slivers.
Do we want to do 9/8? We have more green.
I was thinking we wanted to
almost the other way
because
no, the mana wefts too, and the mana wefts. So we want the extra green. But 9/8, I think we're going to be forced to do. Overall, I think this deck's a little bit lower on the rung. It's probably like a 6, maybe like a 5 or a 6. We certainly have enough ways to win. Like I said, the Trollhide on the Dawn Strike. Trollhide being one of the few beneficial auras that I really like in this set. Fire Shrieker on a Dawn Strike is amazing. Double Strike Lifelink, good on defense, good on offense.
Really good on defense.
We didn't get very many evasive creatures, so Fire Shrieker becomes a little less amazing. It's still an amazing card in general, though. And actually, I still really like it with, like you said, the Master. I really like it with the Deadly Recluse. I think it's insanely
really
good with Deadly Recluse. So, and the Enlarge too. It'd be Fire Shrieker Enlarge is like just ridiculous, really over the top. So this deck can win, certainly win. Mediocre looking. This looks like a deck that could get there though, especially with the early ramp. I could see us powering out some early Dawn Strike Paladins or something like that, or just powering out an early board presence to take over the game. Depending, it's pretty draw dependent, but we'll see how it goes. We got a decent removal set too.
Yeah.
So that's it for this podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, I'm going to be working on getting those Kingdoms of Corithan spoilers up on the blog. Love to hear some feedback on that. Go to SeemsGoodMagic.com. Check out that blog. and leave some comments. I'd appreciate it. Email me at mortarpod@seemsgoodmagic.com. We're still on Twitter at SeemsGoodMagic. I'm trying to like live stream more often than just Tuesdays and Thursdays, 7 p.m. Central Time. But for now, it's those set times for sure. And I appreciate all you guys that have been stopping out. I really do appreciate it. That's cool. So that's it for the podcast. Hope you enjoy it. See you guys later.
See you later.